I'm Jim Browdy, head on the 11 o'clock hour, BPR, live from the library. It's Ask the AG with Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell from 11 till noon. We'll ask her about the ice killing in Minnesota, how her office is stopping federal clawback of NIH grant funding, and more.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Have a question for the Attorney General? Call or text us at 877-301-8970, or if you're close to Copley Square, stop by the Boston Public Library and ask her in person. It's Ask the Attorney General next on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR and GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump says he has canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until attacks against Iranian protesters come to a stop. Trump had previously said he was looking at a request from Iran for a meeting. That was after Trump threatened to attack Iran. Writing online this morning, Trump told Iranians to keep protesting and, quote, help is on the way. He didn't elaborate. Javad Ali is a former National Security Council senior director. He says the Trump administration needs to answer a legal question.
What legal authority can President Trump rely on to conduct attacks against Iran for Iran's crackdown against its own citizens? That is not a direct threat to the United States, at least on my read of President Trump's constitutional authorities.
Last night, Trump also announced he'll impose tariffs on any country that does business with Iran. He did not offer details. The chair of the House Oversight Committee, Kentucky Republican James Comer, says that former President Bill Clinton failed to show up on Capitol Hill today for a deposition. Comer is leading a congressional investigation into late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Comer says there will be a consequence.
I think it's very disappointing. As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Comer says Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton sent him a letter telling him they would not testify. The New York Times reports they said they have already provided statements similar to others to the committee about the Epstein investigation. The Clintons say that Congressman Comer is attempting to bring Congress to a halt, simply to have them imprisoned. President Trump travels to Detroit today to address a meeting of the city's business leaders. The president's visit comes as the city opens its annual showcase of the automotive industry. From member station WDET, Quinn Kleinfelter has more.
Trump is set to speak at an invitation-only meeting of the Detroit Economic Club and is expected to tour a Ford Motor Company factory. Trump has frequently appeared in the swing state of Michigan, arguing his use of tariffs would aid Detroit's signature auto industry and help return manufacturing back to the U.S. Tariffs have increased costs for automakers, even with carve-outs for the industry. Trump also eased Biden-era emission standards and erased tax credits designed to promote electric vehicles. His handling of the economy is seen as a key issue in the state's congressional and gubernatorial races this year. For NPR News, I'm Quinn Kleinfelter in Detroit.
Stocks are lower on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down more than 310 points at 49,276. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts has a new head of Veterans Affairs. He is Eric Goralnik, who not only a military service member, but is also an emergency physician at Mass General Brigham. The State House News Service reports this is the second time Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey has filled this position. Dr. Goralnik succeeds John Santiago, the state's first ever cabinet-level Veterans Services Secretary, who stepped down this past fall. Enrollment of international students at Harvard University is up, Bloomberg News reports, even as Harvard continues its fight over visas and funding started by the Trump administration. The school has seen a record number of international students enroll, the most since 2002. And the head of New Hampshire's Republican Party has abruptly resigned from his post. The New Hampshire Union Leader reports the resignation of Chairman James McEachran of Derry is effective immediately and follows allegations that he had a confrontation with a former congressional candidate. McEachran submitted his letter of resignation yesterday, and it comes in advance of an emergency meeting of the GOP Executive Committee in New Hampshire that's expected to ratify former Rochester Mayor Paul Callahan as McEachran's replacement. In sports, we got the Bruins hosting the Red Wings at the Garden tonight, and it's women's beanpot hockey time. Tournament is tonight. First up is BC at Harvard. That's a 4:30 game. Then at 7:30, it's Northeastern at BU. 39 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org. And Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The BSOs, that's the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Andris Nelsons is here at noon today. We're back here tomorrow, going to be joined by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She's going to Zoom in at noon. And in person, Dr. Atul Gawande, the great physician, great writer, who also ran USAID when we had a USAID. He's going to be here at 1 o'clock. The mayor of Boston, Michelle, will be here January 20th from noon to 1, taking our questions and yours. Hello, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. And as of yet, we don't have a date for the January appearance of the governor. As soon as we do, we'll let you know. But today, it's time for the January edition of Ask the Attorney General. Joined now live at the library by Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. Attorney General, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year
and
to all
to
of
you.
us.
So,
let me just say,
what?
if you have a question for the AG, you can call or text at the 877-301-8960. Library would like to ask a question directly. Go see our colleague Olivia, who's about to raise her right hand. That would be Olivia and her right hand, and she will connect you, assuming your question is appropriate.
So, Attorney General, we spent a lot of time moaning and groaning and all the terrible news coming out of Washington, but we have, and congratulations to you and a bunch of other attorney generals that sued the Trump administration. We have some good news about health research, medical research, about the wind farms, about research funds at colleges. Tell us.
So, obviously we are still facing unprecedented federal overreach from the Trump administration, blatant constitutional violations, and we're fighting back. We're now up to close to 50 lawsuits against this administration, and the goal is to protect billions of dollars in Massachusetts investments. Those lawsuits, they have tried to take away $3.27 billion in Massachusetts investments, and we have protected $3.11 billion in Massachusetts investments by these nearly 50 lawsuits. So I'm proud of my team. Thank you, and that applause goes to them. And just to give you some recent victories, especially in the NIH context, and this is federal funding that goes to biomedical research, clinical trials, pediatric cancer, for example, PTSD. We won a huge lawsuit victory with indirect costs. So all of those things that create the jobs, the infrastructure to be able to do this research here in Massachusetts, we won that case. And that's a huge victory for us, full stop. So now these indirect costs, these billions of dollars will continue to flow to Massachusetts. And just to give you an example of how important this funding is for our economy and also for the life-saving research that it is, in fiscal year 24, 219 Massachusetts organizations received approximately $3.46 billion. That's nearly 6,000 research projects of real human beings, children included, veterans, seniors, looking for cures to diseases. This is jobs, of course. This is what makes Massachusetts not only a national leader, an international leader in the medical and the health space, huge. And when it comes to climate and infrastructure projects, we continue to protect offshore wind. We continue to win dollars for example, our FREMA projects, BRIC grants, which are infrastructure projects in various municipalities for climate resiliency. And then, of course, consumer protection as a whole. The last I checked, elders, for example, are still being scammed, and we don't have a federal partner to protect us on those things. So it's our office that are stepping up in partnership with AGs across the country. And I've been saying if folks are feeling any type of despair and hopelessness in this moment in time, remind yourself that you live and work in Massachusetts, the greatest state in the country. The greatest state in the country. And on top of that, you're not alone. You have an AG that has your back, and this team has your back every day. And then lastly, our lawsuits are working. They are working to protect the foundation of many of our people's lives, and we'll keep fighting on your behalf.
Are any of these subject to appeals that the Trump administration could then take to the Supreme Court?
Some of them could be, but for the most part, many of these we have won at the district level or at the appellate level. In the NIH case that I mentioned, particularly on indirect cost, we won that at the highest court in the circuit. So that's a big deal. They haven't appealed that. I don't think they will. So that's done. And that's a huge victory for our state.
One last follow-up on these things. And again, if you want to talk to the Attorney General, ask her a question, text or call 877-301-8970. In terms of the NIH thing, the research thing, that requires that the, correct me if I'm wrong, that the processes that were stopped by the Trump administration must restart and be dealt with fairly. It obviously doesn't, well, I shouldn't say obviously, it doesn't mean that there's any requirement on the part of the Trump administration in the future to provide grants to these organizations, right? It's about existing thing. Am I right about that?
So NIH 1 was these indirect costs, so the lab structure, infrastructure, and employees. NIH 2, that's ongoing. And we are taking a leadership role there. We just had our incredible lawyer, Jerry, actually argue this case before the First Circuit. And so we're continuing this. We have been going back and forth with the Trump administration, so some of those funds are still flowing. The processes that you're talking about, some of that has continued, but we're still, and they have agreed to go back to a process because before they had abruptly stopped the process
for
as a
the
whole.
Things that were in the pipeline.
That's exactly right.
But things that are not yet in the pipeline in the future, if Trump wants to be as anti-science and as anti-research as it is, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Of course, he could always be that. And let's just make it clear, we will always be prepared to fight and file a lawsuit at every iteration, just like we're still doing with SNAP benefits to make sure people have access to food. One
last thing, and I'm going to make an offer since you were nice enough to wish us Happy New Year. If you're able to guess what my question is about, you get a free GBH tote bag. What do you think it is?
The Auditor.
Auditor. Now, here's my question.
I love bags.
We are more than a year.
Free bags.
Free bags.
Because we're in a cost of living crisis.
I don't know if we're allowed to give
free.
it to you. I think we can give it to you.
I can gift it to someone who needs it.
Okay, fine. Now, in a moment of seriousness, as we've discussed every single month with you and the auditor when she's here, 71% of the people voted for the auditor to be able to and to audit the legislature. There's been a year-long standoff, or maybe not quite that long, but close to it, since the voters voted. Well, it actually is a year long between you and the auditor. If the standoff continues, you blame her, she blames you. Does that mean that the voters are never going to get what they voted for?
I hope the voters get exactly what they voted for.
But if the standoff continues?
I hope the auditor stops the standoff. And I say that not to suggest that there's any... We represent almost every state agency and constitutional officer in the Commonwealth. We have done that, I think, exceptionally well. Anytime an agency comes to us and asks us to represent them, we ask them a certain amount of questions, they reply, and then we move forward or not. The only agency or constitutional office we have had any issue with since I've taken office is the auditor. And it's not for lack of trying. It's not for a lack of trying to resolve this. There is a pathway forward where she could get a lawyer. We've asked her specific questions. Instead, she sought to
get a lawyer and do what?
A SAG lawyer. So for example, if we're not going to represent her directly, she says, well, allow me to go get a lawyer. Even in that posture, which we allow for other agencies, she still has to answer certain questions. And she has not provided us those answers.
But one of the questions
and so I would actually suggest, maybe the next time I can provide you those questions.
Okay.
And you can ask her the answer to those questions, because I think that's what we need to move forward. And if we do, we will, but we need the answer to those questions.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and then I promise we'll move on to the listeners. My understanding is one of the questions is not about what you currently, you the auditor, currently want to audit at the legislature, but what you might ever ever want to audit the legislature. Isn't that an unreasonable request? Why should she have to answer now what she might decide to audit next year or the following year?
The court would ask her that. There are constitutional limitations on what her office can audit the legislature for. And even before the ballot question, we put that out there before the ballot question.
Right, some things are appropriate by your account, some are not.
And so she has to be able to answer those constitutional limitations, because if she goes into court to suggest otherwise, the misrepresentation is not okay. It undermines the credibility not only of our office, but also of the law itself, and we can't do that.
So you're going to provide the questions, we'll
Sure,
broach them with her, and
Absolutely.
we'll continue this thing.
Absolutely.
We're talking to the Attorney General now. It's your turn, Lori in Roslindale.
Lori?
You're first. Hello, Lori. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you.
I am breathless, Madam Attorney General, at your accomplishments.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say, slow down if you're running. You're breathless. We'll work it out. Thank you.
And I also hope you're enjoying Dartmouth. I will point out for your boys that Dartmouth used to have a fabulous nursing school, so you might want to take a look at that at UMass Dartmouth.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Now, here comes my question. A lot of developments are being planned in my neighborhood. And we're having a great deal of difficulty understanding which developments should submit impact reports, environmental impact reports, impact on protected classes. When do they need to do the assessment? When do they need to do the mitigation? And I'll ask specifically, are these assessments depending on whether the developers request federal, state, or municipal dollars?
So, Lori, if you could stay on the line, because I'm about to put on my former Boston City Council hat for some of those questions. It may depend, and it's more of a City of Boston question than it is for our office. That being said, we can still be helpful and useful, I think, to you. So if you could stay on, Lori, with Martin from my team, we'll get your contact. We'll talk about what the specific projects are and then follow up with you if that's okay.
Lori, stay on hold. One of our producers will pass along your contact information, and thank you much for the call.
You know, Attorney General, we've been watching a lot of terrible views in Minnesota and Minneapolis, you know, people getting dragged out, American citizens getting dragged out of Target stores, ProPublica reporting about chokehold use by these ICE agents, somebody getting DoorDash delivered and ICE agents tried to follow the DoorDash delivery person into somebody's house. I mean, just kind of awful video. So what do you think, and what does any of this mean for Massachusetts?
Well, I will say I stay in direct contact with AG Ellison in Minnesota, AG Raoul in Illinois, all of my Democratic AGs who are seeing unprecedented attacks in many ways by ICE agents and sometimes Border Patrol agents within their communities. Tear gas used indiscriminately. Obviously, the horrific death of that woman in Minnesota. Tragic to say the least. This was a mom. This was someone dropping off their child at school. This was a U.S. citizen. And then to have the vice president or the federal administration blame her for her own death is awful and unacceptable. And so I'm continuing to stay in contact with them to support them in how we hold ICE and federal administration officials accountable. It is not easy for us to do, but we are all on the same page that accountability is necessary. I also hope we do not see what we're seeing in Illinois right now, in Oregon, and in Minnesota, here in Massachusetts. We're tracking this. We're telling folks if they are seeing things in Massachusetts to report to our office. We are also, of course, staying in contact with law enforcement and so many others, doing rapid response for folks who are unlawfully detained, and there have been people that are unlawfully detained. We're doing Know Your Rights trainings. We're putting out information so people know what their rights are if they are detained, and also what bystanders know what their rights are. And sadly, the agency that is responsible for holding these officials accountable for what we're seeing, these egregious attacks, is your U.S. Attorney's Office, is the federal administration. And clearly they're unwilling to do that. And the lack of transparency as well. And you're seeing that play out in Minnesota. The fact that Keith Ellison, AG Ellison, is having to do his own investigation while being shut out of the FBI investigation into this death is unacceptable. There should be collaboration by everyone. Someone died. And instead it is state AGs that have to step up. So I hope we don't see what we're seeing there in Massachusetts, but we'll continue to support them and we'll continue to hold officials here accountable and support our immigrants every step of the way.
And people can get the information on your website?
Absolutely. We have a whole landing page. If you just go to mass.gov/AGO, there is a whole landing page of all resources for immigrants generally, for anyone who is a resident of Massachusetts to this great state. And while I have this public platform, I think it's really important to stress, because I am hearing the narrative be misinformation, suggesting that all immigrants are somehow criminals. That is nonsense. People are choosing to come to Massachusetts to work. People are choosing to give their gifts to this great state, including in the context of healthcare. If you think about Haitians, for example, our elder care system of healthcare in Massachusetts would come crumbling to its knees without Haitians. It's as simple as that. And so let us not forget we are a community and a state of immigrants. And those who are perpetuating crime on our communities, well, we hold them accountable. We do that in my office, and my law enforcement officials do it with transparency. They do it without mask, and they do it with a real seriousness and also real training. The last point on this is the federal administration is putting out a lot of incentives to hire folks quickly. They are lacking training. They are lacking the background that law enforcement typically needs to do their jobs effectively, which is causing fear, eroding trust, and most importantly, making it more difficult for law enforcement at the state level and at the municipal level here in Massachusetts. So we'll keep doing what we can to support our immigrants.
One last follow-up thing. We had, last week, we had 3 individuals on the show, Attorney General, who were arrested at the Burlington ICE facility for attempting to deliver food and some medical, menstrual products, a bunch of things to people there. One of the complaints is how poorly ICE is treating people there, including having them stay overnight, sleeping on cement floors, that sort of thing. I think it's select people. I'm not sure.
Town meeting.
Well, whatever it is, whatever the people there who run the town, they say they cut a deal with ICE. I think it was in 2007. I'm not sure the year. But part of that deal, not part of that deal, central to that deal was that no one would be held overnight. ICE is violating that, according to them. They have attempted to enforce it unsuccessfully. Is there not a role for, if that's true, and I assume it is there not a role for you in terms of enforcing an agreement between the town of Burlington and ICE itself?
ICE and the federal government have significant authority to do almost what they like in the context of immigration enforcement and detention. And the U.S. Supreme Court most recently gave them license to do it in a way that we think is discriminatory.
You mean that thing out of California?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And even in their federal facilities. So I have authority over the state. And so, for example, if folks were detained in the House of Correction, say in Plymouth, or in other places in Massachusetts that are immigrants or Suffolk County, we have the ability to make sure that they are treated well, that the conditions of confinement are not subpar. We have very little, if not any, authority to do that in the federal context.
Even if they have made an agreement about certain conditions.
And so an agreement with who, right? At the end of the day, the agreement for the federal government to do things quite differently is usually with Congress, or if it's a state agency, so me working with my U.S. attorney counterpart, for example, we both could say we're not liking the conditions and complaints we're getting on Burlington. Let's come together to improve the conditions there. But unfortunately, we don't have a real working relationship to be able to do that. It's not
with
to
the U.S. attorney.
Exactly. It's not to suggest we didn't have it before. We did. On many cases, we did a lot of great things together. And I think even what Senator Warren said recently to the president himself, if you want to address affordability, public safety, we are ready to do those things with you. But instead, what we're doing right now is public safety on our own. We're doing consumer protection on our own. We're addressing affordability and the housing crisis on our own, because they're choosing instead to expend the limited resources they have to detain immigrants who are working, or who are here lawfully, or who are seeking a pathway to citizenship, who are no public safety threat whatsoever. And let's be clear, those are federal public dollars, your tax dollars, being used for those purposes, instead of for affordability and other things. I hope they change their agenda, and I hope they change it quick to be responsive to what people actually want from them, which is to address our cost of living crisis, improve the conditions of confinement. But it's not easy to do.
By the way, for those who don't know the reference, actually after a speech at the National Press Club yesterday by Senator Warren, Donald Trump called her on the phone.
Yeah.
And I think I read something, she almost didn't take the call because she didn't recognize the number. But one last thing, a number of attorneys...
I'd be happy to take his call. I have a lot of thoughts on where that man man and that president could work with me, and I'll pray for him before we start that conversation
I know you will.
on the issue of affordability, on housing, on civil rights protections, on ways to actually help immigrants who want to become citizens, whole host of ways, whole host of solutions. That's what people want instead of promises he keeps making that he knows he's not going to keep.
A number of U.S. attorneys, I think, have demonstrated themselves to be nothing more than essentially vessels for implementing the wishes of the President of the United States. Do you find the same out of the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts?
I hope not. At the end of the day, all of these folks who are doing these jobs, they're public servants.
Yeah.
And we have to always remind ourselves, these jobs are not about us. It truly is about the public and serving them. And every time I'm in community, the number one thing they're asking me about is the Trump administration and accountability. Not just on affordability and what we can do there, but also on ICE accountability. These are folks who are going to communities masked. People don't know if they're being kidnapped, who are at times picking up folks who are not criminals and who do not have a record. And so I would love to be able to work with my U.S. attorney and say, hey, how do we reset? How do we really go after those criminals who are perpetuating crimes in our communities? How do we work in collaboration and in partnership? And how do we do it in such a way? We may not agree on everything, where we're not personalizing, it's not attacking each other. It truly is about getting things done on behalf of the people we all serve.
We have a text, and I think that this person, a lot of people are worried about this, what Massachusetts will be doing, Attorney General, to protect elections for the 2026 midterms, and if other states are working with us.
So I think we're fine here. Obviously, Secretary Galvin has been out there, and he is the most senior election official in the country, and he brings exceptional expertise. And of course, we've had to defend him against the Trump administration in some context too, for him doing his job. But we're working with other states that have more concerns around voter fraud and other things, and we're offering up our support, and sometimes from a litigation posture, sometimes just lending support to amicus or something else to protect access to the ballot, to expand that access. And so we'll continue to do the same here in Massachusetts.
About it?
I'm not as worried as maybe some others, but there are, of course, other states where that AG is more in the weeds on the ground. But I think, frankly, to combat that, we need more people voting. At the end of the day, the turnout numbers in this country as a whole are abysmal, including in Massachusetts. I'm up for re-election. I want people to vote. I want people to hold me accountable. So for example, if I said I was going to establish an elder justice unit, a police accountability unit, a reproductive justice unit, well, did you do that? I did all three of those things. Hold me accountable. And I get why people will want to throw up their hands with politics because they're just done with all these politicians who are just talking a lot. We are delivering for real people all across the state. And I can't do this job effectively if it's not in partnership with the people in the very state. And so in some communities, you're seeing voting numbers below 10%, below 20%. And I just encourage folks in this year and this season to get more civically engaged, to vote, to be engaged as much as you can. And I get it. You have jobs. You're busy. I'm looking at people in the audience. I get it. There's a lot going on. But that's why we have early voting. That's why we try to make it as flexible as we can. That's the way you hold people accountable. And if you don't like what they're doing, well, run for office yourself or vote them out.
You know, speaking of early voting, which I hadn't thought about in this context, we had Catherine Gergen-Barnett here yesterday talking about how not only clients, patients who are undocumented, but Latino patients, for example, who are citizens, not going to the doctor, not taking their kid to the doctor for fear of being snatched. So I would guess, I hadn't thought of this till now, if ICE ends up showing up at the polls, one of the ways to circumvent that is for people who are entitled to vote by mail and not have to go through that experience.
I will say we're going to have to get real creative. It's not lost on me that even folks who are citizens but who have family members that are immigrants, just the fear itself of being in community or in public is real.
Well, citizens
that they may
are being
not
snatched too.
Like they may not want to vote. And so I think we can get creative, but I also think reminding folks that the policies that come out of an administration, including out of this state, including out of our offices, are not by accident. We were put here by voters. And if you want something different, you have power, and you have individual power, and you have collective power too.
We're going to take a quick break. More of your calls and texts with the Attorney General coming up. She's going to be with us at the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. I am Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to Boston Public Radio on GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell will be with us till noontime.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, what happens when you put real political heavyweights, veteran journalists, and strategists of every ideological persuasion in the same room, then hand them a constitutional crisis? You get the PBS series Breaking the Deadlock. We'll talk to the show's moderator, law professor Aaron Tang, about what these hypothetical scenarios reveal about the power of reasoning amid partisan divide. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition in East Sandwich now through January 30th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250, masshumanities.org. And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants, customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion, with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And Babson College, where you can advance your career with an MBA or specialized master's at the school ranked number 2 best college in the United States by the Wall Street Journal 2025. Babson.edu/grad programs.
Welcome back to BPR on NEPM and GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browder, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, halfway through the January edition of Ask the Attorney General with Andrea Joy Campbell. You can call her or text her at 877-301-8970.
Mallory from Quincy, you are on with the Attorney General. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Mallory.
Mallory?
Hi, good morning. My name is Mallory. I'm the co-director of Families for Justice as Healing. And
Hi, Mallory.
Incarceration of Women and Girls. Hi.
How are you? Happy New Year.
I'm doing okay. Happy New Year. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your work to hold this federal administration accountable. And as always, I just want to deeply honor and appreciate you as a person who is directly impacted and whose family is directly impacted. Thank you for your leadership. I wanted to ask about an incident of state violence here in Massachusetts. Last month, Mr. Jacoby Kenny was killed by guards in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. He was being held on a relatively low bail and had not been convicted of anything. His murder was witnessed by dozens of men who are also being held in pretrial detention and who have tried to offer what they saw. This has been covered in the Boston Globe. Right now, the incident is being investigated by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, and as you can imagine, there's a conflict of interest because these men are also being prosecuted by that same DA's office. On top of Mr. Kenny's murder, there's a pattern for years of abuse, brutality, and neglect at the Sheriff's Department, and I wanted to ask you today if the Attorney General's office could do an independent investigation of Mr. Kenny's murder, as well as abuse and neglect that's happening in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Mallory. I will make sure we follow up with you because we obviously are following this case, and I know DA Haight and his team have already opened an investigation into this, and they're taking it very seriously. There are, as to your point, numerous people to investigate to question, et cetera. The conflict of interest piece came up recently. I think before the end of the year, we got some outreach there, so we're still evaluating. So we'll follow up on this. No decisions have been made. We have only been in a posture of supporting this investigation because obviously someone died. So we'll follow up with you, Mallory, today on other ways we can be helpful.
Mallory, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it.
Paul in Winthrop is texting, wants to ask the Attorney General her plans and timeline and strategy for any legal action against Winthrop and other towns not compliant with the, the rezoning for affordable houses around the Commonwealth.
I appreciate the question. We are on top of this right now. I think it's about 165 municipalities out of 177 that have come into or that have adopted compliant zoning. And so there are a small number of municipalities that have not as of yet. We gave folks to the end of January, based on our guidance last year, to come into compliance. And those that do not, we will take action as appropriate by the end of the month. And so just stay tuned. We're evaluating those options, and we'll have something certainly by the end of this month.
Speaking of options, Jamie, our colleague, just handed me a Truth Social post from a, in my opinion, very dangerous president of the United States. It begins with, do the people of Minnesota really want to live in a community in which there are thousands of convicted murderers, drug dealers, addicts, rapists, etc.? That's his line about every immigrant is a rapist or a murderer. And he ends in capital letters, fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming. You talked to Keith Ellison, your counterpart.
Yes,
what do you do when a rogue Constitution declining, doesn't care about Constitution, doesn't care about laws? I think it's been demonstrated. What do you do if you're the Attorney General of a state? Fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming. What do you do?
First of all, A.G. Ellison and I are different faith traditions.
He's Muslim, wasn't he?
Yes, and so we talk quite a bit because we are praying people, and I am a believer and believe in Jesus Christ. And so first of all, I would say back to this president, and Keith Ellison would say the same, we don't fear. Fear not. We will not. We have no fear of this Trump administration. We have no fear of this president. What we will continue to do is to do our jobs, and that is to protect our residents and protect our economies, as we've been doing. And I am really proud and grateful to A.G. Ellison and A.G. Raoul for filing their actions against this administration in the context of ICE. I was saddened, as anyone else, to witness the death of that young woman in Minnesota and all of the attacks and videos we were seeing, including folks being sprayed with tear gas who were just peacefully protesting. And so we're doing our jobs. What I actually want folks to recognize is, for Keith Ellison and A.G. Raoul in Illinois, or me here in Massachusetts, or A.G. Bonta in California, or A.G. James in New York, or Dan out in Oregon, all of these Democratic AGs, as we do our jobs, there are targets on our backs. And we need the people to be with us. There are not enough folks that know who their AG is and what the AG's office is doing to hold this president accountable. So one, get to know your Attorney General. Follow us on social media. Follow us on our websites. The same is true for Keith in Minnesota. The second, become a part of some of that work. There are different ways to engage. And then lastly, we'll keep doing our jobs. At the end of the day, everyone should be concerned. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or you're not registered at all with anything. This country looks very different now than it did before this Trump administration. They are sowing fear. They are killing U.S. citizens. They just kidnapped a president or leader in Venezuela for oil. While we have a cost of living crisis here, they could be directing that energy here to help poor people and middle-class families that are struggling. They are in this for profit and profit for themselves while undermining the Constitution and our democratic values. And I do this work not just because I care about the people I serve here in Massachusetts. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, 6 and 8. I want Massachusetts to be better for them. I want this country to be better for them. And the prospects of that is going to diminish as long as people stand on the sidelines, not being a part of the accountability work of this community, of this president, I should say. Not just individuals protesting, and kudos to those folks who are, not just to folks who are lawyers stepping up and volunteering their legal services, or community-based organizations that are doing their part, or teachers who are looking out and saying, where's my student who was an immigrant student I haven't seen in a week, and going above and beyond to find that student that has disappeared. The business community needs to step up. Everything is at stake, and so everyone needs to ask themselves, what are they doing to hold this administration accountable? Each of us can do something, because these type of tweets that you just heard from the president will continue to come. And so I'm grateful for an AG Ellison in Minnesota with a target on his back, that he wakes up every day to exercise that courage to do what's necessary to protect our Constitution and our people, and most importantly, to hold this administration accountable.
What'd you make of the video of the killing of Renee Good? What did you make of it?
I have to, devastated. For me, it's almost like this was going to happen at some point. Every time I've come on the radio, folks have asked, including in person and community, how do we hold these officials accountable for the egregious posture and the aggressive posture they are doing in our communities in terms of immigration enforcement? I have state police, including here with me today, who do not have that posture. It is one of patience, calm as best they can under some horrific circumstances, to be transparent, to hold folks accountable for crime, and to do it in accordance with the Constitution and state law. Instead, what we're seeing is our federal counterparts show up differently. And we kept saying, if that is the aggressive posture and the lack of transparency, even when we were asking questions about people being detained, and we never got a response as to where they were, that is going to lead not to public safety, but to fear, and most importantly, it will jeopardize residents' lives and possibly that of law enforcement. And so when I saw that video, I ached like everyone else. I was angry, just like AG Ellison. I was upset, and then I was even more angered by the response of the president and also by the vice president that would suggest that that woman, who was a US citizen going to just drop off a child, brought that death on herself.
Do you think she was murdered?
I think, based on the video and the accounts, that it could be murder. That being said, we know in the role that I have as Attorney General that you have to prove that, and that's what AG Ellison is going to do, and I'm proud that he's inserting himself to do a thorough investigation to get to a conclusion of whether or not she was murdered. Even though the feds and the FBI are cutting him out, I'm grateful that he's doing it, and I told him I support him every step of the way to seek accountability for her death, and most importantly, to also seek relief for the practices in which, the way in which they're showing up in community to stop this practice, this aggressive posture, the lack of transparency, and of course, the lack of accountability.
Beth in Boston, you're on with the Attorney General. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Beth.
Hi. I just had a question. Let me turn this down. I had a question I'm sorry. I have to take you off.
We're not going anywhere.
We can hear you.
Sorry.
We can hear you, Beth.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had a question because Pam Bondi changed the definition of domestic terrorism, or added a line to the definition of domestic terrorism along the lines of, you can't publicly protest if it is against family values, some sense of morality, and
traditional morality.
Yeah. I mean, what does that even mean? And
exactly.
how is that going to impact investigations? And is there anything states can do to codify language so we don't get caught up in this craziness about what is domestic terrorism?
We don't need to. I will say we have the Constitution, we have state laws. We're crystal clear as to what the law is. What we're seeing is an administration that is seeking to misinterpret the law or blatantly violate it. We saw that out the gate. The number one lawsuit we had against this administration was for birthright citizenship. to protect birthright citizenship. That has been the law of the land for 150 years. And here in Massachusetts, I'm born and raised in Boston. If you know your history of this great Commonwealth, these are Italians and Jewish folks and Irish, folks who came here seeking opportunity, seeking a better life, and who used birthright citizenship as they expanded their families to ensure they would be extended the rights and the privileges of this great country. And so they do not want to enforce the law as it is. They are seeking to manipulate it for their ends, and that, of course, is to undermine our Constitution, not address affordability of the cost of living crisis, demonize immigrants, deport many of them for nonsense, and it's sad. And so we will continue to stand up. The law is crystal clear, and if anything, we just have to continue to exercise courage in enforcing it against this administration.
Beth, thanks. Speaking of
by the way, we should just say her thing is about challenging traditional American Christian and family-oriented values.
But I have to remind her, as a believer who's standing here praying and also in the middle of a fast, that the Jesus I serve is all about love, compassion, empathy, crystal clear. Came to sit amongst the sinners and with the sinners, came to be with the sinners, to seek their repentance and not to save the righteous. So Pam Bondi, I don't know what you're talking about, but it's total nonsense.
What did Deval Patrick tell us when...
He said these people must be reading a different Bible than I read.
Absolutely. And I think, frankly, we need to be going back at them with some of that, too.
Yeah.
Attorney General, speaking of affordability, we've asked, you certify ballot questions to say that they comport with, I think, Article 48, that they're constitutionally proper. Then people have to collect signatures. According to Bill Galvin, as many as 11 ballot questions will be before the voters next November, which is, I think, a record number.
That's great.
The governor told us she's voting no on the rent control question. Mayor Wu, who obviously supports rent control, rent stabilization, says she may sit it out. She's not crazy about the language. How are you voting on the rent control question?
I don't have a posture yet, and part of it is, while there are 11 already that he has certified, Secretary Galvin being the he, there is still potential litigation for these ballot questions. Either we've heard about it and it's not public yet that someone is going to file something, and so I have to wait because I'm in the middle of that process, so I can't take a posture on these yet. But
you will.
I can, once we get through the process, including potential lawsuits that may challenge them appearing on the ballot later this year.
Fair enough.
Paul and Beverly, thank you for calling.
Hey, Paul.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. I'm with Dignity Alliance Massachusetts, a statewide advocacy group for long-term care, and we want to thank you, Attorney General, for your advocacy for older adults and people with disabilities, and particularly creating the Elder Justice Unit this year.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yesterday, the governor announced the findings and recommendations from the Living Commission, which we are grateful for. We're eagerly now waiting you to issue the proposed regulations under Chapter 93A regarding assisted living. When those could be issued.
Well, could you say, Paul, we had trouble hearing you. It wasn't a great connection. Can you just repeat the end, your question one more time for the Attorney General? Just the question.
Yeah. When do you expect to issue the proposed regulations under Chapter 93A regarding assisted living residences?
Did you get that?
Oh, got it. Those are in
Paul.
the works. I will get an update before the end as to exactly where those are as of today. I think it's the first time in the history of the office we have done regulations for assisted living residents. But we're working on finalizing those, Paul, and if I have an actual date before the end of the radio program, I will say that on the radio.
Paul, thanks.
So we're actively working on finalizing those regulations.
Does this have to do with the fire in Fall River?
No, this was separate.
That's a different thing. Okay.
We're following that too, but we are the assisted living regulations, just like other types of long-term care facilities. We play an active role in holding folks accountable that harm residents who are in these different facilities, whether stealing from them or not providing them adequate care, elder abuse. And so for assisted living residences, there were no regulations. And so our office promulgated those, and we're finalizing those soon. And I would just say, Paul, they should be ready soon, sooner than later, so keep following us on the website.
Attorney General, today we're going to discuss this with former federal Judge Gertner at 1 o'clock today. The trans athlete case is is going to be argued before the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, the conventional wisdom is they're going to rule against the athletes. On one hand, I think we'd all agree trans people are among the most vulnerable and persecuted in the country. On the other hand, 80% of people, including 2/3 of Democrats, don't support trans women participating in sports. The Democrats, a lot of people think, and I happen to share this view, in part were sunk in 2024 because of the $170 million Trump spent on those commercials about, he's for you, they, the Democrats, Kamala Harris, are for they, them. How do the Democrats deal with this trans athlete issue in the midterms in a way that doesn't cause them to all get sunk?
Stop doing avoidance. I think at the end of the day, to your point around the presidential, and I was traveling at that time and campaigning for Kamala Harris, and of course at that time, Waltz as well, because I believed in her vision more so than I did President Trump's. And I felt as though avoidance. So if you saw that ad, well, what is the response? But also what I also saw them do is to focus on, I think, trans folks are maybe 2% of the population. To take this small population and demonize these folks, regardless of your position on them, they are human beings, number one. And to use these folks as the problem for every issue that Americans are facing. The number one issue is cost of living and affordability. Everything is too expensive. And no one was really in a deep, consistent way talking about that. So it's don't avoid the issue, and then talk about what people want to talk about the most, and talk about how you're going to deliver for them. And I think, for me, as I get out there as Attorney General, I'm talking about my Trump accountability work and the work my incredible team is doing every day. But I tell folks, I don't want to just be known as the Attorney General who's fighting back against Trump. We are doing a lot on affordability. We just had a $10 million lawsuit against a corporate landlord in Springfield that was having folks live in the most horrific conditions while they're paying their rent and not delivering the housing they deserved. We just had a consumer protection case involving credit cards and where the APR was over 100%, Consumer Protection Division delivering for folks. We're putting money back into the pockets of workers. You talk about Uber and Lyft, drivers are now getting a wage that they deserve and benefits. That was the first time that happened in a significant way, led by Massachusetts. So for me, it's affordability, talk about what they want, deliver real substance, stop pointing out the problems of, we're not doing well because the other side, no, and then hold Trump accountable.
You also said don't avoid the question, so don't avoid the question. Should trans women be allowed to participate in women's sports?
I support it, and I have. And for me, someone who has gone through that self-analysis, that mental health journey, that spiritual journey, that physical journey, who am I to judge that decision? As Jesus would say, who am I to judge that decision? Who am I to demonize that human being? That is not my call. It's not my call. And frankly, it's not, it's really hard to swallow that on the backs of trans youth right now, including some right here in Massachusetts that are taking their own life because of the environment in which they are being threatened every single day, that we would have an administration and people blaming them every single day for the problems of this state and the problem of America. And most of them are kids. Unacceptable as far as I'm concerned.
Gary in Norfolk, you're on with the Attorney General.
Hi, Gary. Gary.
Gary?
Have an easy one, I hope. You hear me okay?
Yep.
So, to Patriot Stadium, recently divided you, and they don't accept.
Gary, bad news. We can't hear you. If we're going to put you on hold, and if a producer back in Brighton could find out what Gary was trying to ask, we'll ask him.
Refusing cash at Gillette Stadium.
Oh, it is?
That's
okay.
what he's worried about.
Can they do that?
So we should talk about this. So there is I got on here before, and it was about Fenway, Gillette, the T.
I remember.
And there was an exception for the T, and then, of course, for the stadiums, they were saying, we're not refusing it. We just have these pay systems. Everyone is different. So I do think one of the things we are going to go back to is revisit this very issue, especially as we prepare for World Cup games coming here and other things. So, Gary, we will come back to this, and maybe the next time I'm on, I can bring up more details here after having conversations with all teams on this one.
We'll do it.
Let's go to Paul in Braintree. Thank you for calling, Paul.
Thank you,
Hey,
Gary.
Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Marjorie, Madam Attorney General. I have a quick question on the process and implementation of the state's Stormwater Runoff Act. I live in a large condominium development with 390 units, and on our individual water bills is attached the stormwater fee, but they also attach that fee to the trust itself. As an individual owner, I only own within the four walls of my unit. I have no stormwater runoff fee. So the town of Braintree is collecting approximately another $7,000 per quarter for attaching the fee to the 390 units plus the trust itself, which should be paying the stormwater runoff fee. It seems like they're collecting the fee twice, unless the implementation of it, from my understanding, is incorrect.
Paul, if you could stay on, this sounds like a specific bill question, but if you could stay on, I think we'd like to see the bill, et cetera. Maybe there's some other tenants from where you live that we have heard from. I'm not sure. But if you could stay on, I'd like to get your contact and we can follow up. Stay on with Martin, please.
Do you miss being on the Boston City Council?
No.
Okay, so
no offense to my colleagues. I was just reaching out to one this morning saying, and obviously I congratulated Liz on being council president.
Reardon,
it's not an easy role.
Breeden, I'm sorry.
And I stay in touch with my council colleagues. I loved being District 4 City Councilor. I'll start welling up in tears because those were my people and they still are. I love being Attorney General. And I also love to actually get out of Boston to other parts of the state, as far as Berkshire County, the South Coast, the Cape, frankly, communities that feel left out and left behind, because I think we tend to talk about Boston all the time. And I can say that because I'm born and raised in Boston. And people are like, what about me? And I'm like, I know, what about you?
We're on NEPM in Springfield right now as we speak.
So I love it. And even when you guys came out to Springfield, what that meant.
Yeah, it was great. We loved it.
It was wonderful to be out there with you. So for me, this job allows me to interact with more people across the state.
So did you have a problem with what are I think fairly described as sort of the backroom politics that ended up with Breeden being the council president?
I have no idea what happened there.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You really don't?
I don't. I was following it like everybody else, thinking, oh, okay, this person will be council president, and then I got an alert saying, oh, it's somebody else. So no, not at all. At the end of the day, it's up to the colleagues. That's what I always impress. When I became council president, the voters don't get a say on that. Those are your colleagues, and you have to earn their respect. You have to earn their vote, and it's a tough job. So congratulations to Liz, and I wish her well, of course.
We have a minute for Bernadette in a truck.
I'm sorry, Bernadette. You
1 minute.
You have to be quick, but thank you for calling.
Okay, I'll ask my question quickly. If an ICE agent comes for me, can I hit him with my car and kill him and not go to jail? It's a serious question.
Unfortunately, Bernadette, you will be arrested, and they will hold you accountable, and that's the problem. We're saying right now, the way in which things are being done, you would be held accountable, and yet for us to try to get accountability for ICE officials, they're making that extremely difficult and hard. And we want to change that. And that's why I'm working with AGs across the country, including AG Ellison in Minnesota, AG Raoul in Illinois, to support them in holding ICE accountable when things go terribly wrong. And then where ICE is doing their job to pick up someone who is perpetuating crime, okay. But we know that that's not the case. They're picking up folks who are here lawfully. And it's very difficult to hold them accountable, and we think that's unfair.
You know, Bernadette, thanks for the call. Bernadette told our call screener that one of the things she wanted to ask you, but we rushed her. Are there any Republican, this is a good question, state AGs that are allied with what you and others Democratic AGs are doing around ICE, or is it all Democrats?
There is all Democrats. There is not one Republican AG that has joined any of our efforts, not one, including the 47 lawsuits on NIH funding to save our public education and public schools, to save our libraries, our museums, our cultural institutions. Not one Republican AG has joined. To save SNAP benefits, not one.
Attorney General, it's good to see you as
Thank
always.
you, and
Thanks so
happy
much for
New
your
Year.
time.
Thank you
Same to you, of course.
We have been speaking with Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. She joins us every month, and we really appreciate her joining us. We say goodbye to those of you listening at any PM, but thank you very much for tuning in. You can make sure you tune in again. The Fabulous 413 starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to keep talking here in Boston. Coming up after the new news in 89.7, the Boston Symphony Orchestra is performing a series of all-American programs this month, marking its 250th anniversary. We are going to talk with conductor Andris Nelsons about that and the BSO and all their Grammy nominations. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Speakeasy Stage, presenting Job, the relentless psychological thriller for the digital age. Runs January 16th through February 7th at Speakeasy Stage. SpeakeasyStage.com. Rapper Wiz Khalifa and actor Sanaa Lathan learn about ancestors who left the American South in search of better lives in the North. Join Henry Louis Gates Jr. for a new episode of Finding Your Roots, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on Hour 2 of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start the noon hour with one of our favorites. Boston Symphony Orchestra music director Andris Nelsons helped preview their special programming for America's 250th anniversary.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung on how Boston's new liquor license expansion has impacted local restaurants and what Trump's pressure on the Federal Reserve could mean for businesses here. All that, plus our Get It While You Can, Two More Things segment next. Hour number 2 of BPR and 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Supreme Court is diving back into the culture wars today, hearing arguments that test laws which ban transgender girls and women from participating in publicly funded school sports. NPR's Nina Totenberg explains has become the newest flashpoint in both politics and law.
Transgender participation in sports is extremely rare, but the rhetoric around the issue has proved very helpful for President Trump in his most recent presidential campaign, which aired an anti-trans ad 15,000 times, putting many Democrats on the defensive. Indeed, more than half the states have enacted laws banning transgender participation in sports.
NPR's Nina Totenberg reporting. Inflation held steady last month. Rising rents and grocery prices more than offset a drop in the price of gasoline. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest cost of living figures from the Labor Department.
Consumer prices in December were up 2.7% from a year ago, matching the annual increase of the previous month. Prices rose 0.3% between November and December, led by rising costs for housing, food, and energy. Gasoline prices have fallen over the last year, but the cost of electricity and natural gas is way up. Stubborn inflation is likely to make the Federal Reserve cautious about additional cuts to interest rates, despite pressure from President Trump. On Sunday, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said the Justice Department had launched an investigation of the central bank and suggested that's part of the administration's long-running pressure campaign to exert more control over interest rates. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The death toll from protests across Iran surpasses 2,000, according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. The non-government group relies on supporters in Iran cross-checking information. The latest mass protests against the government began more than 2 weeks ago. As yet, no military movement from President Trump, who has repeatedly threatened action against Iran if the Islamic Republic security forces use deadly force on protesters. Russia's unleashed another round of attacks on Ukraine, costing more lives and taking out power and heat. NPR's Joanna Kisses has more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia had launched 300 strike drones and more than 24 missiles overnight. In the northeastern city of Kharkiv, Russian forces hit a postal terminal, killing 4 employees, and also struck a children's medical center. Much of the capital, Kyiv, as well as the southern city of Odessa, do not have electricity. Ukrainian energy supplier DTEK said one of its thermal power plants has been attacked 8 times since October. Writing on social media, Zelensky said he hopes Ukraine's allies will speed up aid already promised to the country. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Braintree Police Chief Timothy Colquhoun has resigned from his position after more than 2 years and is heading north to Newton. According to an announcement made yesterday by Braintree Mayor Aaron Joyce, Colquhoun has been named the new chief of the Newton Police Department. Patriot Ledger reports that Colquhoun thanked the mayor and the department's employees, adding that Braintree will always be close to his heart. He will remain in that position until the 11th of February. And kudos to Massachusetts-based Market Basket for being named the second best grocery store chain in the country. Boston 25 reports that the ranking comes from Dunnhumby, a customer data science company, and credits Market Basket's low prices and customer service as 2 big factors for the great report card. Texas-based chain H-E-B took the number 1 spot on the list. Meanwhile, Costco was ranked number 4, Aldi number 5, Trader Joe's number 7, Amazon 8, and Wegmans came in at number 9. In sports, the Bruins host the Red Wings at the Garden tonight. The Beanpot Women's Hockey Tournament is today. First game 4:30, BC at Harvard. Second game 7:30, Northeastern at BU. And in the forecast this Tuesday, cloudy, mid-40s today, cloudy, mid-30s overnight, 50 degrees tomorrow, and then clouds, sun, and mid-40s on Thursday. It's 41 degrees in Boston right now, 43 in Springfield. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
He is Jim Braude. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We will be back here tomorrow. Congresswoman Anna Presley is not going to be here in person. She's going to Zoom in. However, here in person, Dr. Atul Gawande. He's going to be here at 1 o'clock. You've probably heard of him. He's not only a great physician, a great writer, written a lot of great books, and he's also the guy that used to be running USAID when we still had a USAID. The mayor of Boston will join us January 20th from 12 to 1 here at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marty. We're joined now. Are we allowed to say one of our favorite guests, or we're not supposed to say that?
Yes, no, we can say that.
We are joined by somebody who is truly one of our favorite guests. Conductor, I would say philosopher too, Andris Nelsons. He's leading the Boston Symphony Orchestra through a series of all-American performances this month in honor of America 250. I can't wait. BSO.org for more information and tickets. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about how Andris and the orchestra are nominated for a boatload of Grammys at the ceremonies on February 1st. Andris Nelson's music director of the BSO. Welcome. Good to see you again. How are you?
Yes, thank you very much.
You got to move the that's
microphone.
Perfect.
Yep.
Good to see you.
So tell us the E Pluribus Unum from many to one festival. What's that going to be, and what's it about?
Yes, this is a festival which is connected to the motto of the United States of America is from different from all to one.
E Pluribus Unum.
So that symbolizes, the motto and the idea of people from different backgrounds, different continents, different upbringing, coming together and be as one, and actually uniting in the values of humanity, and those values bring us together. And so it's kind of symbolic, and also this being the 250th anniversary of the United States, and this festival is so much symbolic as well for I think for the meaning of music, for meaning of humanity, and unfortunately some kind of a little bit ironic what is happening in the world. It's dark times, but we decide. But this next to that, we're bringing this festival, and we are performing and talking to our audience with the positivity and the hope, and it's so this festival has a big, very, very symbolic meaning. Besides, we play great American music of different times, and And
it's running through from now through the beginning of February at bso.org. I don't know if I know you're featuring American composers. Shostakovich was not American. I want to break the news to you. You know that, so you can handle this?
Yes.
Okay. So who are some of the American composers you're featuring who are favorites of yours, Andris Nelson's?
Yeah. Well, actually, last week we did concert performances of Samuel Barber's opera Vanessa. So it's actually, I think, and Barber is certainly one of my favorite American composers. I mean, it's a beautiful opera, very beautiful story, sad, dark, but the music is so touching, and so also going back absolutely different direction. Next week we perform music by John Williams, including his piano concerto, which is written more in kind of a classical, let's say, symphonic genre, and still having the many excerpts from his including film music as well, and of course this week we are having for example, Leonard Bernstein's Chichester Psalms, which is again one of the most exciting conductors of the history, but also one of the most exciting composers, and even more so one of the most important humanists, if I may say, musicians and personalities in the musical world generally.
And a deep connection historically with the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
And a deep connection.
Can we go back to John Williams? He composed this piano concerto in his 90s. He's 93, I think now.
Yes.
And he composed this you performed it at Tanglewood, I think, for the first time.
Yes.
This will be the first Boston performance. Here's the finale of Williams' piano concerto performed during, as I say, last summer's world premiere at Tanglewood. Just a little bit of it. We played the wrong thing. Okay, okay, fine.
We played the wrong
Thank you,
thing.
Matt, for making that clear. We'll get the right thing in a second. You were very kind not to tell us, Andris. That's the kind of person Andris is, and our apologies for that. We'll get back to that in a minute. What kind of person is John Williams?
He's, if I can, when I saw him first, he's like the real. How you say? Oh my goodness, the Father Christmas. With the energy and the flow of positivity, of embracing everyone, very modest, very wonderful person and a genius composer. What he has done. So for me, you know, with a gray beard and
for
a gray,
70 years,
Well,
for
you know,
7 decades, it's incredible.
And explain to people too that may not know, because he's 93. I mean, you know, half the time I don't know what my name is. He's 93, and he's composing not only all the piano music, but when the orchestra comes in and out. So he's composing music for all the instruments. I mean, talk about what it means to compose a concerto.
Yes, I think you need, of course, you need extreme talent, you need understanding of the orchestra, of each instrument, and of course deep understanding of the instrument for which the concerto is written.
Yeah.
In this case is piano with a wonderful, another modest personality, wonderful maniacs who will premiere the concerto, and who will do it also in January.
Yeah.
So and of course it shows the artistry of John Williams, that he's able to compose the complexity as a concerto in the highest quality, and he can compose in the same time the most touching melody where you're basically crying immediately. Like for example, the very sad music from Schindler's List, where he really touches the. So he knows. I would say he's a great dramaturg of emotions as well, you know, because I think being a composer, I mean, you need to. I think you somehow need to build not only dramaturgy of the architecture of the piece, but I think the most important is to build the dramaturgy of the emotionality and of the storytelling, what is behind the notes. And he's such a great storyteller. He's such a compassionate storyteller, modest, but absolutely excellent. So he could be the most arrogant person if he wanted, but he's not, and he will never be, because he's a genius, and he wouldn't be genius if he wouldn't be a human being.
That's what people say about you, my friend. We're talking to Andris Nelsons, music director of the BSO. So how many Grammys have you won so far? Today. How many today, through today?
Well, I haven't won any.
Oh my God! I knew you were going to say that. How many Grammys have you been associated with? The winning. How many have you been associated with?
Well, the orchestra, Boston
the orchestra,
Symphony,
of course,
the Boston Symphony, and of course all the team of engineers,
everybody.
I'm actually thinking, it's all for Shostakovich, Journey of Shostakovich recordings. I think is it 4 or 5?
It's a lot.
5.
How many are you nominated for February 1st?
4.
Yeah, 4. And you're involved in, and by the way, that's more than any orchestra. You wear this more than any orchestra in the United States. You know that?
I'm so proud of the
orchestra, not of yourself. Why can't you? What is in you that causes you to be unable to take praise for your work, Andris Nelsons? Your humility, I've known you a long time, is unlike. Why do you think that is, that you always have to deflect it onto others, the players, the engineers? Why can't you accept it for your own work? You understand what I mean?
Yes.
I know you do.
Firstly, I think the profession of the conductor, when you'll see, it's kind of, it looks strange, you know. But I will please, dear friends and the audience, we still want you to come, even if you would be disappointed about the profession of conductor, because what I do is waving my hands and rehearsing, but I think it's actually trying to unite musicians at the moment when you perform together and inspire and give an impulses. It's because they are playing and they are these wonderful musicians. But sometimes you need to give it some inspiration and to unite in one goal. So everyone who perform the music is our egos, or in a good sense, or our all ambitions, and it becomes, as it is music making. It's a mission. It's a mission to talk to the audiences and to relay these amazing humanity values what are in music, and in all times it's been important. And so the conductor is a communicator, I would say, and it's somehow bringing everyone together. It's not you can't. The thing is, it's very simple, if the musician plays any instrument, you can play alone, and it's wonderful. You play the music or the piano, but a conductor alone, that basically,
just standing there waving.
I mean, in the other sense, it's any profession of where you are responsible, as you have certain leadership, or as a profession, or or in any field, you need to love the people you're working with, and you need to love and share and to want. I mean, I love them. The musicians. I tell them, the New Year, and I miss them for if it's 4 weeks and come. I love them as a musicians and as a human beings, and I think that's in any profession. Any profession or even in politics, I believe you have to serve your people. You have to love your people and serve. This is not the wall of fame where you are just standing and conducting.
There's a guy in Washington, you should tell that
Yeah.
too. We're talking to Andris Nelsons, and by the way, tickets and information on this wonderful series, Tribute to America 250, go to bso.org.
And I just want to mention, you mentioned, Andres, that you were, the orchestra's doing Bernstein's Chichester Psalms, if I pronounced it correctly.
Yes.
But I also was interested, there's a BSO co-commissioned by Alison Loggins Hull, inspired by Joni Mitchell's Rhapsody on a Theme by Joni for flute and orchestra, which sounds wonderful. And the Tanglewood Festival chorus is going to be there as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
that's
in
this
program.
weekend, right?
Yeah, this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, Tanglewood Festival chorus will sing the Chichester Psalms, which is with the chorus and the Bernstein and the boy solo voice and the orchestra. But we have the co-commissioned the flute concerto for our wonderful principal flute Lorna, who actually just became an American citizen.
Oh, that's great.
And she's going to make her solo
and she's
performance.
She's a solo performer. She's a principal flute, and she's going to make this solo of this concerto, which is a wonderful piece. Of course, inspired by this wonderful personality, and this is it shows again. It's not the word showcase. It's not the right word. It presents one of our wonderful musicians, Lorna, in playing the solo in front of the orchestra with the orchestra, and it's even though it's a contemporary piece, but it has it's a universal. It's not like it's not necessarily the very a kind of strange harmonies. It's very accessible. And also melodic and also challenging, because she's such a master of flute playing that.
And all you're going to be doing is just have that little stick. You're going to be doing nothing up there, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Really good conductor.
And the Good News Mass, too, I also want to mention, because this sounds very interesting. This is the end of the month, it's January 29th and 31st, and Thomas Wilkins, a wonderful conductor, I've seen him perform.
We interviewed him out of Tanglewood.
Yeah,
he was great.
He'll be conducting. That sounds wonderful, too, the Good News Mass. We need some good news.
Yes. I'm really looking forward. I'm not doing myself, but it's a wonderful.
He's a
Tom,
wonderful guy.
Tom, and also in these times and in any times, this inspired by the gospel mass. Our composer chair, Carlos Simon, the commission. This will be very emotional, very special. So.
Can we talk about the state of the world? Your buddy Yo-Yo Ma was here in November, and he was talking about how meeting people like you do all over the world gave him hope. Here's a little bit of what Yo-Yo had to tell us.
You go around and you talk to people and you realize, no, there are these heroes, unsung heroes, unlocated heroes everywhere all the time doing incredible work. That's what I learned. It gives me hope in humanity, people who believe in themselves, in things that they do, in culture. they can actually turn the other into us. And they do that over and over and over again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was Shostakovich. That was not Yo-Yo Ma. No, for those who don't know, you grew up in a Soviet republic, very different upbringing in Latvia. I think you were 13 years old before Latvia became free. You have a very different upbringing from Yo-Yo Ma, but many similar life experiences as an adult. Are you hopeful about the future, or are you where we are? The two of us are not very hopeful most days here. Where are you, Andris Nelsons?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's very wonderfully said what Yo-Yo
It's beautiful.
So beautifully said. I mean, I think it's totally true. As you ask about, my upbringing, until age of 13, I was citizen of Soviet Latvia, so basically of Soviet Union, and we know the history of so much disaster and so much terrible things was what happened against the humanity, but we always had a hope, and I think that hope came for me personally very much also through music, and because through music, this art form, music, generally culture is you play the notes, and there is this, what it means is behind the notes. So you feel this emotionality, the message what the music gives, but you cannot say, oh, this music is Soviet, or this music is anti-Soviet, or so this goes beyond the kind of the borders in a way. So you can connect to ideals through the music, and then you pass it. Like you said, you meet people on the stage, you meet audience members. Without talking to each other, through music, we transmit this infection of humanity and great, wonderful things what the music brings. And we meet the musicians in different countries, an audience, and you don't talk, but through music you understand. And it gives you I remember every concert, it gives you unity feeling, although you're not allowed to say, oh, what a wonderful Beethoven. You could say, oh, you could say different. What a wonderful whatever. It was really terrible, but I think it's that was one of the total inspirations of music itself. And for me personally, it was also the spirituality. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily the religion as a, but spirituality. And again, which very much came also through music, or your beliefs into God, and whatever the God is in everyone's mind, that there also that somehow every dark tunnel, when we look in the history as well, whatever of civilization or before dinosaurs, I don't know, there is somewhere there's an end of the tunnel. It might be sometimes so long, but there is, and living in Soviet Union, I totally can say that despite the feeling that you have totally that you are totally behind the Iron Curtain, I practiced the music. I loved music. We were, we had a lot of friends, and we talked about music and the end of the tunnel came. I mean,
yeah.
So we have to. I mean, I think the belief and the hope, of course, gives us the feeling of realizing that every tunnel has an end. But there are things I think what we can do, and to emphasize the humanity, and maybe against the evil go not killing to killing, but killing to I can't. It's you can't exit a tunnel if you create another tunnel next to that.
Yeah.
So, you need to create the light.
Understood.
Which sometimes is patience and sometimes is very hard to accept things, and we shouldn't accept those things in these days where humanity has experienced the worst and the most beautiful, and to come back to worse, it shouldn't happen that way. I don't know.
We're talking to Andris Nelsons from the BSO. Check them out at bso.org.
Yes, and what a great lineup of concerts you have coming, and you can get tickets at bso.org. And by the way, everything is explained on the website, so you know who's playing what and when they're playing it. Thank you so much.
Whoa. We just found the John Williams.
Oh,
and
good.
We're not going to go away. I'm crossing my fingers. Are we in good shape here? We believe this is John Williams' Piano Concerto, just a tad from Tanglewood. Here it is. Yes. That is Thursday, January 22nd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday through the 25th, correct? You'll be playing all John Williams. That is at bso.org. As always, Andris Nelsons, we are thrilled to talk to you. And thanks so much for your time. Good luck in 2026.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Same
much.
to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have been speaking with Andris Nelsons, philosopher, conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. His official title is music director bso.org for more info and tickets on this great lineup of concerts. Thank you so much, Andris Nelsons,
Take care,
for
Andris.
being
Thank
with
you
us
so
and
much.
for everything that happens at the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is going to be here to talk to us about free liquor licenses and how AI could be the key. I'm really goofing this up. AI could be the key to a 4-day work week. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, what happens when you put real political heavyweights, veteran journalists, and strategists of every ideological persuasion in the same room, then hand them a constitutional crisis? You get the PBS series Breaking the Deadlock. We'll talk to the show's moderator, law professor Aaron Tang, about what these hypothetical scenarios reveal about the power of reasoning amid partisan divide. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and MIT Sloan Executive Education, a global community of leaders seeking fresh insights on strategy, innovation, and AI. More than 90 programs offered year-round. More at executive.mit.edu. And St. Andrew's School in Barrington, Rhode Island, a middle and high school with day and boarding options, plus after-school and weekend programs. Open house January 14th. standrews-ri.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here tomorrow, Congressman Ayanna Pressley will zoom in at noon. Dr. Atul Gawande, who's known for many things, most recently one of the leaders of the now essentially defunct USAID. He'll talk to us about the consequences of that at 1 o'clock. Talk about tough act to follow. We're joined now at the library by Shirley Leung, business columnist of the Boston Globe, host of the Say More podcast, BPR contributor. I think she's up to the task. Shirley, it's nice to see you.
Two tough acts to follow.
That's right.
I mean, you had Andrea Campbell.
I know.
AG.
I know.
Andreas.
Two
But we
tough
picked you because we figured you could handle it, Shirley.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Fill us in. We've talked to you a lot about liquor licenses.
Yes.
You wrote a story about the new liquor licenses and creativity. So what'd you say?
Right. So I wrote a series with my colleague Diddy Coley back in 2024 about how it was really, really hard to get a liquor license in Boston. Typically, it would be nice to get a free one, right? And the city did have a bunch of free licenses, but they gave them all out. And when they run out of licenses, restaurants have to buy a license on the secondary market from another restaurant that closes, and it was like $600,000.
Yeah.
And that's really hard if you're a young chef trying to launch your own restaurant. So a lot of chefs are moving out of Boston and opening elsewhere where the licenses are plentiful and very cheap.
Yeah, how cheap?
I mean, they're several $1,000s a year. I mean, it's not a problem.
So it might be $5,000 as opposed to $600,000.
Right, exactly. And so back in 2024, the city working through the state created 225 new licenses. They were getting given out over 3 years, 2024, 2025, and January 1st was the last batch. So I looked at where did the licenses go, and a lot of them are what they called restricted. They're free. You use them, you don't pay for them, but when you're done with them, you have to return them to the city. So that's why they're free. But it can be a game changer for a lot of restaurants.
You quoted a number of people said they were going to close.
Yes.
Were it not for the fact that
Right.
they got a free
Well,
license.
Comfort Kitchen, right,
Yeah.
is a darling of the restaurant industry in
fabulous
Dorchester.
place.
It had a James Beard nomination. It's a, Nepali-inspired global cuisine. Bipla Law and his wife, started Comfort Kitchen in 2023, and he was telling me, I was like, what were you going to do? It's like, we couldn't afford a license, and they were just really lucky that a free license was turned in at the time that they were opening their restaurant. So they got this free license, and looking back, had they not got this free license, he said, Bipla said, we would not have survived. And now they've got a second license out thanks to this 2024 legislation in their new place at Alma at the Atlas in Alston.
Great.
They get a free license, and so they can open up yet another restaurant.
One of the things, by the way, your whole series has been really wonderful, and I've learned a huge amount, so thanks for every part of this thing. I don't understand what the process is. While they're free licenses, they're a limited number. There are a lot of them compared to the nightmare of years gone by. Who gets and who doesn't get? What's the process like?
Well, you have to apply for one, and there's a community process. Many of the new licenses are tied to a zip code because they didn't, this time around, the city and the state didn't want the licenses to go, people who are well connected, and who already have licenses.
All in downtown Boston.
All downtown Boston or the Seaport. So there's a certain number of licenses for Mattapan, for Hyde Park, for Roxbury, and a lot of those places won't run out of licenses like last time. And so, but it's the usual process. But the city has done a good job in getting the word out, holding a lot of webinars, and telling people that there are licenses, you can get them, and they're a game changer. They can be twice as profitable as selling food.
By the way, before that, the money just went to the city, to a general fund. You paid $600,000 for a license. Where'd the money go?
No, they were restaurant to restaurant. So
it's like medallions on taxi cabs in the old days.
I thought the city got a cut.
No, the city did not get a cut. So it was, if you bought a license, let's say years ago.
So how did it get so crazy?
Because there weren't because what happened was the Seaport, right? Think about how many restaurants opened up in the Seaport, and we went through this boom period.
So people could afford it.
Well, we were opening a lot of restaurants in the city, and so there was a time where the supply did not keep up with demand. But now there's only 64 out of the 225 new licenses have been given out. So there are a lot of licenses available.
So Shirley Leung, Marjorie regularly reminds the audience that of all the many causes that I have championed,
that's right,
none have come to fruition. Yep. And I have to say, probably, everybody knows daylight saving time year-round, a whole bunch of things. The one that I care most about is the 4-day work week. And it appears that, and we had Juliet Shore on, who just wrote that great book a few months ago about it. She's from BC, right?
Yes,
Juliet.
Boston College economist.
And it appears, based on what I was reading, that the key to getting to the 4-day work week with no diminution in pay for the workers may be, talk about ironies, AI?
AI, yes. I mean, I was shocked. I was thinking, wow, this pipe dream of an idea that Jim has been talking about for years is actually happening, Thanks to AI, it's allowing companies to embrace a 4-day work week. I mean, basically, AI, if you're a tech company, there's a lot of AI now that can do kind of the lower level software coding or administrative work. Like for lawyers, they can, do the administrative work of billable hours. Or think about your doctors, right? How many doctors use AI now to take notes? Can I make a funny?
Sure.
You may.
Yes.
Confession.
You may.
So I just saw my rheumatologist last week, and they all have their automated systems to take notes, and then they generate a note and they send it to you, and you can often tell that they're generated by AI. And so my comment when she was describing me or the AI, she said she appeared to be a well-nourished.
Oh my God.
Well-nourished patient.
Well-nourished patient. I love it.
I was like, that's got to be an AI generated.
That is pretty great.
I think so.
I've never been called well-nourished and never called someone else well-nourished. But maybe that's what I should start saying.
Yeah. You got to be so careful with AI. I've looked up so many things, well, not so many things, but a few things that have been totally wrong.
You do.
I mean, you just think this is terrible if people are taking this to be.
But what was incredible about this story was that AI was really changing the way we work to the point where some of these, big companies, like whether it's the CEO of Zoom or Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, they say that we might have like 3.5-day work weeks. I mean, for 4 days might be too many.
Well, there was also a wonderful piece. This is in the Washington Post story that we're talking about. The wonderful thing that I think won't surprise, well, the number may surprise us. This one CEO was quoted as saying, for the average, he or she went to a 4-day work week because of AI, said that they had an average of 2 applicants for every, why are you making a face at me? I got this wrong? No. For 2 applicants for every open job. Now that they're on a 4-day work week with same pay, 350 people applying for the same job.
That detail.
So
that's incredible.
That's pretty intense. We're talking to Shirley Leung, who is
well-nourished.
You look adequately nourished. I don't know if you're well-nourished.
She looks healthy.
You look nourished, is what you...
healthy.
I should ask around, is that what doctors...
that is just...
Is that what doctors use now?
So we're going to play some of my favorite sound of the entire year of July of 2025 because, we were talking about how part of the theory about why Donald Trump wanted to get to Maduro, the president of Venezuela, is that Maduro was mocking him and humiliating Trump by dancing all the time, and Trump didn't like it. Well, the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, humiliated Trump on live television. We all saw the news when he was ready to accuse Powell of spending too much money over the central bank's headquarters. So here is the sound.
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Trump hands him a piece of paper.
That's right.
Yes. I don't know who does.
They're in their hard hats.
Yeah, you're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
Part of the overall.
So
you know what's so great
Trump
is
has the wrong price, the wrong
was so
building.
Understated.
So understated.
Great.
No, it's not a new building. It was built 5 years ago. No, that isn't right. I mean, Trump is there. He's going to nail him because he takes his Jim says takes a piece of paper out, and the guy next to him, I forget who was next to him. Was it the housing
it was
guy?
Tim Scott. No,
Tim
it was
Scott was next to him.
Senator Scott.
And Scott said, yeah. Way overpriced. No, and then they included 3 buildings instead of 2. It was great.
But we should mention the reason we're going to talk about the legal part of this with Nancy Gertner in the next hour. Essentially, Trump is urging the Justice Department to bring a criminal prosecution against the head of the Fed for allegedly lying to Congress.
About the renovations of,
the renovations
of the building there.
And
the Fed
beyond
building.
The insanity of, once again, a president making decisions for the heretofore independent Justice Department, the impact of the economy that he is drowning in, Trump, by going after a guy who's generally respected, to the point where even somebody like Elizabeth Warren, who's no fan of Powell, was trashing Trump for this. This could have devastating impacts on the economy, couldn't it?
It could, but For at the moment, the stock market has not reacted. I mean, there was
Today it's down a bit. Is it not?
But it hasn't nosedived. And
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
been up and down, and I think everyone is taking a wait-and-see moment here. But everything Trump does is unprecedented, and this is yet an unprecedented move to try to gut and try to threaten this independent body, and that sets, most known for setting interest rates, and the reason why he's going after Powell, because he wants much lower interest rates to, juice the economy. But Powell and the board have been holding line because it's going to drive up inflation.
They've made 3 cuts in the last 3 meetings.
But it's not big enough.
I
for
know,
Trump.
I understand that.
Right,
yeah.
and so what's also unprecedented is, Fed Chairman Powell is fairly reserved. They say very little.
Yeah.
But but on Sunday night he puts out this extraordinary video.
It was
saying that defending the
We have it.
independence.
You want to hear it?
Here
It's
it
2
is.
minutes long. Here's just 18 seconds of Powell's response to the DOJ investigation.
But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
And by the way, what's happened in the last 24 hours is every living Treasury Secretary of either party, every living former chair of the Fed of either party, and behind the scenes, the Secretary of the Treasury, Bessent, apparently is going crazy about this, angry that Trump and the DOJ did this.
And meanwhile, Trump it's like the same words, the same playbook all the time. Everybody that's an immigrant is weaponizing their cars, apparently, and everybody he doesn't like is grossly incompetent, as he called Powell, incompetent. He's going to sue him for gross incompetence.
Right.
I mean, the people keep falling for this is just unbelievable.
Well, I don't know if they are. I mean, this may backfire. Some Republicans are even.
Might
a lot of the Trump people, if Trump says the guy's grossly incompetent, then he's grossly incompetent.
I mean, Trump appointed him.
We forgot to say that.
Right,
Yeah.
Trump appointed him, and
even though he was grossly incompetent.
Right, exactly. And now it was widely known that Powell would probably not be chair. He's not going to be he's not going to continue on as chairman.
Well, he could continue on if this
As a board,
legal case.
past May, you mean?
Right, past May. But the thing is, he's not going to continue on. But he was. I think the thinking was he would step off the board. But I think now he wants to stay on the board to keep fighting the good fight against Trump.
Till the end of Trump's term, by the way, till 2028, which is great.
Right. And so, but yeah, I think this. I wonder if this is where the line is drawn in the sand, because in the last 48 hours, the response has been extraordinary, and it's a good sign that the stock market hasn't taken a nosedive.
And by the way, for those, this is one of these rare circumstances. Other than the most sycophantic speaker, maybe in the history of this country, Mike Johnson, of course, saying, well, if he's innocent, he should prove his innocence. Some Republicans who are hardliners, who never, unlike a Rand Paul or a Tom Tillis, some Republicans in the Senate have been very critical of what Trump's doing here, which is a different dynamic than we've seen in almost.
By the way, we already have an email from someone who believes that Powell is grossly incompetent. You folks short of a meaningless video clips about Powell. Meanwhile, he's in the hot seat under investigation and gave his trembling, please, please don't prosecute me, like the guilty conscience weasel he is. Live in reality once in a while, Margin Jim.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
People fall for it.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm with Shirley on this one. I think it's sort of odd that this is the one where they part ways, is because they care more about business than they care about somebody losing SNAP benefits.
Right. I was going to say the economy is very fragile. And I think everyone realizes that, and this could really, and also he's already, going into invading Venezuela, right? He's already, created a potential long-term war there, or at least conflict there, and so that could also hurt the economy as well. So I think everyone's just trying to keep our economy together.
I want to reemphasize what you said, which is, I didn't know this till late last night, what you said a minute ago. Powell was supposed to leave his chair on May anyway, and resign, as you guys said, from the Fed in total. But now the rumors are he's so pissed off, if you can excuse the expression, at Trump, that while he won't be chair post-May, he will stay on as just a board member, a full voting member,
thorn in his
through
side.
2028.
And some politicians have said they will not appoint a new head of the Fed.
Tillis said he wouldn't vote for him.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
While this litigation is continuing. So we don't know what's going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, that's huge. I'm so glad you said that. It's really important. Tom Tillis has said, he's from North Carolina, I think, said explicitly
You know why
he will
said
not
that?
vote for a new Fed chair unless this thing
So
is
does he
resolved.
get to stay? I guess you'll ask Judge Nancy, Judge
Well, we
Gertner
will.
this.
That's my
We'll
belief
find-
that it will be able to stay. But the reason Tillis is being truthful, unlike most other Republicans, is because he's not running again.
That's true. Well, there are a couple. I'm telling you, there's a guy from Montana, Danes or somebody, who said some good things last night. They're not huge numbers, but they're more. Can we come back local before we let you go? John Barros, who used to serve, well, you can tell us a little bit about his background. After this, you can't call it a firing, the alleged agreed-upon departure of the short-lived head of the Convention Center Authority. We talked to you about that in the past. Barros is the interim guy for a year. Tell us about Barros and tell us what people think about the appointment.
So John Barros, ran for mayor, but he was also known as the chief economic officer under Marty Walsh. Well-known kid from Dorchester who did good and a well-known
leader. He ran
leader.
Dudley Street for years before.
Yes. And so when I learned, and all of us learned, that he was going to be the interim executive director and CEO of the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, I was like, why didn't I think of that earlier? He's such a good candidate for this job as the interim, and I think his first day is tomorrow, and I think it will go a long way, because what happened was that the MCCA which oversees the convention center in Southie and Hines down the street here, had a lot of issues under the last executive director, Dave Gibbons. There was accusations of racial discrimination of not only employees but also customers and guests of the convention center. And the thinking was that in bringing Marcel Vernon in as was a black leader, hospitality leader, they could make things right at the MCCA. But instead, in a year, they shown him the board, and people are like, "What is going on here?" Black leaders are up in arms. I believe there was a meeting with the governor about this. They wrote a letter to the governor, and the governor has controlled the board, so she was able to work with. It sounds like probably behind the scenes over the last month, the board, working with the governor and others and the black community, picked, put John Barros on the path to be the new leader for the next, year or so. And I think that's the right call, right thing to happen, because there were a lot of people who are upset, especially in the black community, but also this comes at an incredible year for the state. I mean, we have 3 really giant tourism events. We have the World Cup coming in June. We have the 250th anniversary of the celebration of the birth of America, and then there's
tall ships
as well. Thank you. I almost forgot that one. But all happening within like a 2-month period, and all that planning kicks into high gear right now.
By the way, and for John, we believe we're going to have him on the air next week with us. We're confirming that now. He is a person of color.
Yes.
And the contention of the short-lived, I was going to say interim, he wasn't interim, he ended up being interim, but he was the permanent director, was that he increased the numbers of people of color dramatically in the high reaches of the Convention Center Authority. Is that true? I mean, I don't know him to question.
No, he did increase the number of people of color, especially black leaders. I mean, that's what we're all trying to figure out.
Well,
like,
did you ever
what went
answer your
wrong?
own question? You asked in your column, why'd they just give this guy a 10% bonus, the maximum, and then 2 months later force him out? What's the answer to the question?
We still don't know the answer to that. So what happened between the board and Marcel Vernon? Right now, I think that the governor needed and the board needed to stabilize MCC at an incredibly sensitive time.
No, I think you're right.
And now I think a few of us are still continuing to figure out, like, what happened? How can you bring a black leader in and then show him the door in a year? I mean, what happened? And hopefully this will not happen to John Barros. I'm thinking it won't, because in town, so he knows the politics really well, and he knows the economy well. He worked with the convention center when he was the chief economic officer of Boston.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We're old enough to remember the convention center was a baby of Billy Belger when he ran the Senate, and it was thought to be an Irish jobs program.
Well, I think there is a lot of patronage from South Boston still there.
Sorry, I got to change the topic.
One of the things they have to.
We do?
We are inundated by texts from nurses. Here's what they're saying. You're going to feel a little better. Jeff, nurse. Well-nourished has been a staple in our notes for decades.
Oh, good.
Tell Shirley that well-nourished is a common, is another one, medical term when describing someone during an assessment. I'm a nurse. Another nurse. The standard description of patient is well-developed, well-nourished, unless they are not that, and that is not AI.
We got a doctor. You read the doctor?
Thank you all.
I think it was well-developed and well-nourished.
Well,
I
you
think that
are.
was the
There
two
you go.
thing. I was like, whoa, I
Congratulations.
thought it was a euphemism for something else.
Good to see you, Shirley.
Rose in
Leung.
Plymouth, who's a doctor, says not to worry. You are a healthy female.
Thank you.
That's what she says.
I feel
Great to
so
see
much
you.
better.
Shirley, thank you very much.
Thank you, Shirley
We've been speaking
Leung.
with Boston Globe Business College Shirley Leung, host of the Say More podcast. Thank you very much, Shirley. Coming up after this quick break, just enough time in the hour for our not yet Pulitzer Prize winning segment, Two More Things. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
From AI to private space travel to genetically modified babies, what technological advances will shape 2026 and beyond?
More people are forming close personal relationships with chatbots, sometimes even romantic ones.
The MIT Technology Review's annual list of tech predictions is out. We'll hear from one of its editors on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Vivo Performing Arts, formerly Celebrity Series, presenting Alfredo Rodriguez and Pedrito Martinez for an evening pulsing with the spirit of Cuban musical traditions. January 24th at Berkeley Performance Center. VivoPerformingArts.org. And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants, customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Before we run out of time this hour, it's time for us to, I don't know whether the verb to use, to shove in another edition of Two More Things. Marjorie, take it away.
Well, we've seen a lot of horrible things coming out of Minneapolis. You know, reports, ProPublica has one about ICE people using chokeholds. We talked to the Attorney General about tear gassing people who are not seeming to do anything wrong except protest what they're doing. But if you haven't seen it, you can Google it, get it online. Pictures of these ICE agents going after these two United States citizens who were working at a Target right outside Minneapolis, a suburban store, throwing one guy to the ground. One of them was a teenager. They were both trying to explain to the ICE agents that they were U.S. citizens. Didn't really matter. Threw them in the car. Apparently, when they drove around and realized they were actually U.S. citizens, they dumped one of these kids out, or I shouldn't say kids, young man out in a Walmart parking lot. And this was the teenager who was crying and bleeding and beside himself. And you just see these things and you think, I can't believe this is going on in the United States of America. It's like you know, some authoritarian policemen. I guess they are authoritarian policemen, but they're not police, and they've got their masks on, half of them. So just look online at some of this stuff coming out of Minneapolis, and it's just incredible. The cops wouldn't do this to somebody that was accused of a terrible crime. They would march them as Maduro was with handcuffs, and they'd have someone on either side of them.
Well, the ICE guys wouldn't do it if they didn't have masks either. I mean, that helps shield a lot of things, not just their identity. You told me this morning you were going to do Two More Things that was upbeat and positive. What happened?
Oh, well, the story didn't turn out to be exactly what I looked into. It didn't turn out to be what I thought it was.
Can I do one? Upbeat and positive?
Yes, go ahead.
Voice of America. I assume everybody knows what it was. Founded in the early 40s to combat Nazi propaganda. It's gone nonstop for more than 60 years until Trump, of course, canceled it, providing news, information, programming in dozens of languages, especially in countries with limited press freedom. Well, even though he eliminated, with the help of two-time loser and election denier, Carrie Lake. Remember Carrie Lake? She's head of VOA. Here's what she said, quote, incompetent, corrupt, biased, and a threat to America's security and standing in the world. She actually could have been talking about herself, but she was talking about the voice of America. Here's the good news, unlike Marjorie, who reneged on her commitment to bringing good news. A bipartisan group in Congress has come to the partial rescue of the voice of America. They have renewed funding, not quite at the level, it's a little bit lower than it used to be, but it's in an appropriations bill that is unlikely to be vetoed. So, another example, Shirley was talking about some Republicans joining Democrats standing up to Trump. This is an important one, and I guess here's hoping that it's contagious when they realize you can take them on something that really matters and survive, hopefully. Maybe they will decide they can do it again and again. So this is a really good sign, and I just hope it makes it through.
Okay, well, that was very nice, Jim.
Well,
Thank
no,
you.
it wasn't just very nice. It was positive.
It was positive.
As opposed to you're very negative.
Well, I was supposed to do something positive, but
you're the one who complains every morning that all we are negative.
Well, we do have a lot of things. I mean, we talked about some of them with the Attorney General. I mean, restoring funds that were taken away. Unfortunately, in many of these cases, especially involving medical research, it is too late because the projects have been going on for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, are kind of ruined because they were stopped in the middle.
I thought you were going to be positive about that,
too.
too.
Okay, I'm not going to be positive.
Okay, let's move on.
And we're not going to be positive after the news either, so hang on.
We might be, you don't know.
Might be a little bit. We are going to talk with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner because we know things legally are going very well in the United States of America.
Some are.
We're going to talk with her about this trans athlete case before the Supreme Court and what Minnesota can do if they want to prosecute ICE agents who killed Renee Good or do other nasty things in their state. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For that next birthday, holiday, or special occasion, you can give a standout gift. A GBH membership. Thousands of hours of your favorite PBS shows, event deals, and local business discounts. Learn more at gbh.org/gift membership.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on Hour 3 of BPR live from the library. Today, the Supreme Court hears arguments about state bans on trans athletes. We'll talk to retired federal judge Nancy Gertner about that, about Trump's threats to the midterm elections, and whether the state of Minnesota could independently investigate the ICE agent who killed Renee Good.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then, since the Danish territory of Greenland is in the news and it's the middle of January here in Boston, no better time to co-opt the Danish concept of hygge by leaning into the cozy season and curling up inside with a book and a very hot beverage. What does hygge mean to you? Call or text next on the extra cozy third hour at BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Inflation's holding firm, according to the Labor Department's report on the Consumer Price Index. In December, consumer prices were up 2.7% from the previous year, same as November's year-over-year increase. Inflation's higher than what the Federal Reserve would like, but it remains steady, and that'll weigh on Fed policymakers. when they meet later this month to decide whether to cut the key interest rate for a fourth straight time. Now, on his way to deliver an economic speech in Detroit, President Trump weighed in this morning with a verbal jab at Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
The inflation numbers just came out, and we have very low inflation, so that would give too late Powell the chance to give us a nice, beautiful, big rate cut, which would be great.
As the Fed prepares to hold again another policy meeting, Trump's clash with Powell over the central bank's previous resistance to lower interest rates remains at the forefront. This week, former Fed chairs who served during Republican and Democratic administrations united to defend Powell against threats of a federal criminal investigation. The Trump Organization has launched the development of 2 more real estate projects in Saudi Arabia, adding to its growing list of projects in the Gulf. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports the president's son, Eric Trump, launched the projects.
The Trump Organization this week launched a golf course, hotel, and residential community on the outskirts of the Saudi capital, Riyadh. It will be built within a sprawling new development owned by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is run by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The company also announced a new Trump Plaza in Jeddah, the second to be built in the Saudi coastal city. The Saudi company developing these projects, Dar Global, says the new projects are worth $10 billion. The Trump Organization also has multi-billion-dollar real estate projects under development with Dar Global in Qatar, Oman, and the UAE. The projects reflect a rapid expansion of the family-run business and other financial dealings in the Gulf following President Trump's first term in office. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
Faith leaders in Minnesota have taken a lead in resisting the federal government's massive immigration enforcement operation. NPR's Jason DeRose has more from Minneapolis.
The multi-faith organization Isaiah has worked for decades in Minnesota to bring together people of faith and help them translate their beliefs into concrete actions. Co-executive director Janae Bates-Imari says Isaiah once again began mustering the faithful after the killing of Renee Macklin Good last week.
It is a sin for any person, especially a person of faith, to watch what is happening and to stay in silence.
Isaiah helped lead faith community's response to the murder of George Floyd and worked with Minnesota politicians to pass progressive legislation, including paid family and medical leave. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Minneapolis.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down 367 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Greater Boston Food Bank CEO Catherine D'Amato has announced her retirement. For more than 30 years, D'Amato has led the fight against hunger in Massachusetts from her office at the Greater Boston Food Bank. And today, she said it will soon be someone else's responsibility to lead that crusade. The Globe calls her one of Boston's most prominent nonprofit leaders, and the board of the food bank has hired headhunting firm Russell Reynolds to find her successor. D'Amato says she'll stay in her role until the next CEO can be found to oversee the organization, its 135-person staff, and its $100 million budget. Some fun news from the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown. They reported late last night that an aerial survey from this weekend spotted 33 North Atlantic right whales in Cape Cod Bay. The marine researchers say that's the most they've recorded in a single day in January ever. Over social media, they say the sighting underscores the critical habitat Cape Cod Bay plays for the whales. They are reminding boaters to slow down. There's a seasonal speed restriction on vessels that are 65 feet and longer in effect. Bruins host the Red Wings at the Garden tonight. Big college hockey night tonight. The Beanpot Women's Hockey Tournament starts. First, it has BC at Harvard at 4:30. Then the second game at 7:30, Northeastern at BU. Cloudy mid-40s today, cloudy mid-30s overnight. We are at 43 degrees right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. One more time, some programming notes. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will zoom in tomorrow at noon, and Dr. Atul Gawande will be here in person at 1 o'clock. You probably...
You okay?
Oops.
Okay.
We had a little accident.
Go ahead, keep talking. It's fine.
Atul Gawande is going to be here at 1 o'clock, and you probably heard of him, famous doctor, written some wonderful books, and he also was running USAID when it was still running, USAID, that is. And the mayor's going to be here January 20th from 12 to 1 Mayor of Boston to take our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, you really okay? Hello? You okay? If I had fallen down like that, let me tell you, EMTs would have been here in about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
in any case,
popped right back up again. That was
for the
very
latest
impressive.
iteration of On the Docket, we're joined in person, this hasn't happened in a few weeks, by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Judge Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Judge Gertner, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
So, Judge Gertner, you have some breaking news out of Minnesota and Minneapolis where the ice has descended.
Well, you don't mean ice has descended, you mean the ice has descended.
The ice,
right.
yeah.
Apparently 3 Minnesota federal prosecutors, so these are federal prosecutors based in Minnesota, resigned over the Justice Department's push to investigate the widow of a woman, this Renee Good, to investigate her rather than to investigate the killer. So 3 have resigned, including one who was involved in the fraud investigation in Minnesota. So that is a very big deal. And then 2 others who are career prosecutors. This is in addition to the people in Maine Justice, Washington Justice, who resigned in the Civil Rights Division over the same thing. The decision to investigate the as opposed to the killer, which is extraordinary.
What do you mean? I'm sorry,
I wonder if this has to do with Pam Bondi's somewhat outrageous orders that it's okay to investigate people to see if they are upstanding involving family values, Christian values, traditional values. I mean, she actually issued a statement about this, that we're going to be able to investigate people. It's like...
Well, this is part of the investigation of so-called Antifa, is that right?
Yeah, well, of people that are protesting, or the widow, perhaps, as well, of Renee Good.
Well, it has to be said, I mean, this is something I've been wanting to say, to some degree, to talk about this issue as if it is a normal and legitimate issue, as if it is a piece with the Federal Reserve Chairman or a piece of bombing Iran, it is wrong. This is completely out of the zone. The law enforcement activity of ICE that Renee Good was supposedly obstructing, as I understand it, was going door to door, knocking on doors and asking people if they were citizens. And there was one video that I saw of a woman who came out and said, I'm a citizen. They said, prove it. She said, I don't have to prove it. I'm an American citizen. Said, if you don't prove it, we're going to put you in the back of a car. There is such a thing as the Sixth Amendment. You don't have to cooperate with the police. You don't have to tell them who you are. That's part of the Constitution. So if this was what they were doing on that block, we all should be in the streets. We all should be in the streets. The other thing that was clear to me about this is that it resonated with the Gestapo. Right. It's like banging on the door and saying, who's Jewish here? Who's a citizen? Prove it. And so if they were protesting, and the protests were, as Renee Good's wife said, we had whistles, they had guns. I mean, that's already, that was a legitimate protest, that was an appropriate protest. And then the question is, was she obstructing it? The videos show it clear that there were cars passing on either side of her. And at best, it was a traffic offense for which ICE is not empowered to arrest. And then there are the videos, which everyone has seen, which make it quite clear that the officer was, in fact, not in imminent threat of his life. In any event, you can't be imminent in threat of your life when you have purposely put yourself at the front of that car. It doesn't make any sense. Finally, I'm sorry, I can keep on going. Finally, he's walking around, the officer's walking around the car with his cell phone. At one point, again, in the videos, he puts the cell phone in his left hand and his gun with his right. This is not someone who is responding to a threat to him. This is someone who is intentionally pointing a gun and taking the consequences. The problem is that there apparently are no consequences. And that's why this is unlike everything else that we've seen in this administration.
And you can see him in the video, not the first shot, but the second two shots, firing right through the open window.
And if it turns out that the second and third shots are the ones that killed her, there is no question that this is not self-defense. Because the law of self-defense goes bullet by bullet. And if it turns out that the second and third shot were the ones that killed her, there's no conceivable basis for self-defense. I mean, this, as I said, this is not even in the zone of legitimate discussion. Certainly is in the zone of investigate the man, but not really in the zone of legitimate discussion.
Is her widow required to answer these questions?
No. No. No one is ever required to answer these questions. Jeffrey Epstein, need I say more?
Nancy Gertner, you know Deborah Ramirez, who's a law professor at Northeastern. She sent me a copy of a memo that she had drafted around an issue that's been troubling to a lot of us. The FBI, the federal government, has decided, unlike what they decided immediately, they said, we will conduct the investigation here. We will not share information, evidence with state or local authorities. We know in light of the fact that their bosses, the president, the vice president, the head of DHS, everybody has spoken already, the likelihood of a just and fair outcome based on the facts is almost zero. Ramirez argues, and we're going to try to get her next week briefly, but I just wanted to test this here. She makes the case that is different from what I had heard, that state prosecutors have the ability to conduct an independent investigation of their own here. I have a couple of questions. One, do you agree with
Absolutely. They may be hamstrung by the federal government, keeping them from the evidence that they have.
She says they could attempt to subpoena that evidence.
They could attempt to subpoena. There would have to be a fight. There would be a fight in court. They'd have to be resolved in court. But it's an odd situation. The federal government has access to the agents, right, who are told not to cooperate with the state. But the state has access to every human being on that block who saw what they saw. I think that they could proceed with the investigation. They'd subpoena, there'd be a contest. But as I said, when do you ever have as explicit and as many videos of a crime as you do here? I think that they can get charges based on what they have.
She also made another point. You were arguing a minute ago, which obviously pleased the audience here, the people in these circumstances take to the streets. She told a story in this memo that I mentioned, the legal memo she put together. She cited the example of Trayvon Martin, where the local police department decided nothing to see here, no charges, etc. And Trayvon Martin's mother collected, I think, as many as 2 million signatures that ultimately the whole point is that popular uprisings can work even in settings like this, forced Jeb Bush, who was then the governor of Florida, to appoint a special counsel. They did indict the guy. What was his name? Zimmerman, I think it was.
Zimmerman.
And ultimately he was acquitted, but at least they brought charges against him. So there are circumstances in which even within the judicial system, law enforcement system, the people speaking up can have a positive consequence.
But also one of the issues with Trayvon Martin was that by not immediately investigating, the case against Zimmerman was diminished.
Because they hadn't protected the scene and all that stuff.
They hadn't protected the scene. And so, I would hope this is not the case, that it's not only that the federal government is not investigating, but I would hope that they are not undermining the proof. That would be, they have the gun, they have ballistics evidence, they have a car. And so the question is, if they're going to sort of muddy the waters with their access. Again, this is not an abstraction. This is outrageous. This is beyond anything we've seen.
Well, one last outrage before we move on, at least from me in terms of Minnesota. We know we don't have to repeat all the things. It's a tragedy of our own making, says Vance. She viciously ran over the police officer, according to the President of the United States. Domestic terrorism, according to the dog killer, Nome, and on like this. Let's assume the state does go to a grand jury here. How can a fair outcome come from the grand jury when virtually every one of them has heard each of those things? The president saying it was her fault, Nome saying she's a domestic terrorist. How do you undo that in the minds of a grand juror?
Well, technically, in Minnesota, They need a grand jury if they were going to indict for first-degree murder. First-degree murder may be problematic under the circumstances because it requires premeditation.
Okay.
Whatever this officer did was not necessarily could be premeditated, but they can charge other serious charges without going to a grand jury.
Oh, they can?
They certainly can. This is what Minnesota can do. So then the issue would be the impact of Noem and Vance and the president's comments on a petty jury, on the regular jury. And, you know, I mean, that it's very serious. It would be very troubling, but what those comments were so inconsistent with what the videos was that I don't see how any rational human being could accept.
Did you hear Trump's latest, that she was very disrespectful?
Right.
Was the argument?
Right, lunatic.
Very disrespectful. Was
I mean, but even so, disrespect apparently in Iran gets you shot. Shouldn't be in this country.
Well, we couldn't agree more. We're talking to Nancy Gertner, retired federal judge.
You're a judge and not a politician, but we always talk about the moment when something,
tipping point.
The tipping point. Do you think this could be it? This keeps happening?
I was cheering last night. Sometimes my husband yells at me because I always want to write or say. He says, you don't have to comment about everything. And I'm like, yes, I do.
Former legal director of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts, her husband.
You know, I know I've said this before. He also says to me that just because I can speak now that I'm no longer on the bench doesn't mean that I can't shut up. And of course, there's something, you know, right, there's something to that. But what was your question again?
We always wonder if there's going to be a tipping point. You know, is it Jerome Powell getting criminal charges against him? Is it this? People seeing these videos. I mentioned before you got here about these 2 American citizens who look like they might be a Latino getting dragged out of this Target store, which I didn't think was legal in the United States of America.
No, it is not.
All these law breaking. Do enough people get upset? They've had massive protests in Minneapolis. They had a massive protest in New York City. So people are taking to the streets.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, what I would like to think about is whether this is Kent State. So those people who were, you know, born, what was Kent State was
1968,
right? So people who were born who were alive at that time and sentient knew that the killing of white students on Kent State triggered a massive movement. Of course, the irony was that the killing of Jackson State students who were black did not, which was troubling. But the Kent State certainly triggered a massive outcry. And if people understand that it really could be any of us, you know, I live in a quiet street in Brookline, and I thought if anyone went door to door and I saw what others saw, I'd be in the street as well.
Yeah.
And so that it could happen to any of us. And so I think that this is really, as they say, a horse of a different color. I think this is dimensions different. Trump could have said, "This is terrible. We care about this woman. There should be an investigation."
Yeah,
but the fact that he didn't say that is incredibly telling.
And that she sent another 1,000 ICE people to Minneapolis.
Why are there ICE troops in Minneapolis, as opposed to Texas or Louisiana or border states?
They're supposedly going to investigate fraud. I'm not and there was fraud in terms of making money during the pandemic, particularly in claiming that there were daycare centers and stuff that weren't actually operating. But I don't think the ICE agents are investigating fraud. As
not
far
on
as
that
I've seen.
block and not going door to door looking for citizens. No, that's a ruse.
So, Nancy Gertner, the oral argument today on a trans woman participating in sports. The case is out of West Virginia. The conventional wisdom is this is a slam dunk saying you can bar such individuals from sports. That is what's going to happen, correct?
Well, it will take some circumnavigation for them to do that.
Why?
Because only a few years ago, Justice Kavanaugh joined the majority in saying that the law against sex discrimination, the rules against sex discrimination apply as well to gay people.
That was a job thing, right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, it was the notion that when the statute says sex, it means homosexuals, and presumably it would mean trans people as well. So arguably, that decision should bar them from saying you can exclude this person from sports. But I think that they will figure out a way around it. I mean, this is the culture wars. The Supreme Court has aligned themselves very clearly on the Trump side of this.
By the way, I made a mistake. Kent State was 1970.
Okay.
So
I knew that.
That's right. Slip of the tongue.
So they're also considering a Voting Rights Act case. And they have already ruled that years ago that partisan gerrymandering, meaning party considering gerrymandering, is perfectly constitutional. They're apparently on the edge of declaring that even racial gerrymandering, an attempt to circumvent equal I mean, I can't even say these words. Talk about not normal. Equal and fair representation for people of color, you can circumvent that when you're creating districts, and that's okay, which could lead, depending on when they come down with the decision, could have a huge impact on the midterm elections, but definitely an impact down the line. We got a question, and if you disagree with that, please let me know, but I want to ask you, you are part of a large network of lawyers with whom you speak, judges, former judges, non-judges, that sort of thing. We have this redistricting thing, assuming the Supreme Court does what I expect it's going to do. Trump did this executive order, which I know is not binding, but against mail-in balloting, which generally favors Democrats more than Republicans. We believe it's likely in some communities, following up on the Target story, that there'll be ICE agents at some voting places. What are you and your colleagues doing now to guarantee that the midterm elections are as free?
Right. Me and my followers. I got skillions of followers.
No, but you are. I know you're part of these networks. What's going on?
Well, the first is the litigation, and the Supreme Court litigation is where it is. Just as a caveat, if the Supreme Court issues the decision, particularly this week or in February rather than in June, they are clearly knowing that they're interfering with the
because they're giving enough time to local legislatures to redistrict.
That's right. And so that would suggest a political decision of rather substantial proportions, right? I mean, otherwise, the immunity decision took 8 months. They took their time with respect to that. And because it was pending, it slowed down all the cases against Trump. But this, if they rush this out, that would be troubling. I mean, I think that people are mobilizing so that even in gerrymandered districts, black people and Democrats vote. You know what I mean? When you gerrymander a district, you're assuming behavior of the voters, the typical behavior of the voters. And even in a gerrymandered district, that there should not be that typical
Well,
behavior.
it can, but they craft it in such a way that it makes it much less likely that a person of color is going to win an election there.
Right, or even a Democrat. I mean, that's the problem. If you allow partisan gerrymandering, I can manipulate this to make more Republicans and more Democrats. And black people are typically seen as more likely to be Democratic voters. So if you're creating a Republican advantage, you are by definition disadvantaging people of color. And the Voting Rights Act was seen as the most important legislation in the civil rights era because it was critical to have political representation for black people, particularly in the South.
So if I'm right, you haven't said you disagree that they're going to say that racial gerrymandering is okay. What's the argument? That racism is over in this? I mean,
yes, that is the argument.
Is that really the argument?
John Roberts has said, both before he became a justice and when he became a justice, that the way to end discrimination against black people is to stop discriminating against black people. The belief that you just that you just have to stop it, that you should not be making up for past discrimination, that you should not be dealing with unconscious discrimination, implicit discrimination. Just stop. And it's time to stop. That was the story of the affirmative action decision. The affirmative action decisions involving Harvard was, it's over. We don't need these kinds of protections. That's one thing for discrimination and hiring. Voting is a different issue. Voting is a different issue. But that's what he believes. It's over.
Talking to Nancy Gertner.
You know, we have a text message from one of our frequent texters and callers. Emil in Marlborough says his daughter and son-in-law live halfway between the ICE shooting site of Renee Good and the George Floyd corner where he was murdered. He said they love their neighborhood. 2 days ago, she and our 4-year-old grandson were playing in the snow in their front yard when ICE vehicles pulled up in front of their house. People in cars had been following ICE, and they immediately started blowing whistles, and many neighbors came outside, and they started blowing whistles too. 2, his daughter decided to take the grandson only for inside, not to be traumatized. And ICE eventually started to leave. But that's what they're doing a lot. That's what Renee Good's wife talked about, going out, blowing their whistles.
Right.
I had a whistle, he had a gun.
Right. If you look at the videos, they were all, the whole idea was to let people know that ICE, Gestapo-like, was going door to door trying to ferret out aliens. And they were responding to that.
I have one last thing for you before you go. We talked with Shirley Leung about
I'm not going.
behind the economic, until there's justice in this land.
That's right.
We talked to her about the potential, the investigation, criminal investigation into Jerome Powell for allegedly lying to Congress about this new building, the expansion of the Fed. Here is Donald Trump in December of 2025 at Mar-a-Lago about Powell. Here he is.
So we're thinking about bringing a gross incompetence, what's called gross incompetence lawsuit. It's gross incompetence against Powell. And the guy's just incompetent. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. He's just a very incompetent man, but we're going to probably bring a lawsuit against him.
Okay, and then they started an investigation, and Trump said what he always says, I don't know anything about it, but he's certainly not very good at the Fed, and he's not very good at building buildings. This is about as clear a case, maybe not as clear as Comey and the Attorney General of Letitia James in New York. Isn't this alone enough to get something like this knocked out? Should they indict Jerome Powell?
Yes. I mean, it should be, although vindictive prosecution is one of the more difficult claims to bring.
Well, it's always been difficult because no one says anything this explicit.
But he says what's on his mind. Now, I just want to say that I actually think our president has enormous capacity and enormous expertise in incompetence.
So he knows it when he sees it?
He knows it when he sees it, that's right.
That's brilliant analysis. That really is incredible.
Okay, Judge Gertner, thank you very much.
It's great to see you. Are you willing to go now, or you're not leaving?
I'm kidding.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Okay. We have been speaking with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Thank you so much, Judge Gertner, for coming in. Coming up after this quick break, it is the middle of January. We're about to be at war with Denmark, apparently. So we're opening up the phone and text lines to talk about Hygge.
Hygge. Not Hugo. Hygge.
Hygge. Whatever it is.
Thank you. There it is.
Thank you. Are you embracing it this year? We're going to explain what it is, and it sounds pretty good to me. I'm Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
From AI to private space travel to genetically modified babies, what technological advances will shape 2026 and beyond?
More people are forming close personal relationships with chatbots, sometimes even romantic ones.
The MIT Technology Review's annual list of tech predictions is out. We'll hear from one of its editors on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Babson College, where you can advance your career with an MBA or specialized master's at the school ranked number 2 best college in the United States by the Wall Street Journal 2025. Babson.edu/grad programs. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browder, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here tomorrow, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will zoom in at noon. Dr. Atul Gawande, who wears many hats, most recently one of the leaders of USAID, which is virtually no more. He'll join us in person at 1. We're about to perform public service because the winter season is harsh. Cold weather, cruel national politics. It can be hard to take a moment to breathe, to warm up, to relax. So we're spending the rest of the show trying to embrace some of that warmth. We're inspired by 2 things, Marjorie. First, the fact that we might be at war with Denmark in the near future. So we asked the former ambassador to Denmark, Rufus Gifford, he was with us yesterday, what we can learn from that Scandinavian nation.
They like their life. They're very content with their life.
Isn't it Hygge?
Hygge's perfect. Hygge's more about the moment, though. Hygge is about creating a place where you can enjoy the moment. Yeah,
I could do that in a second.
Yeah, Jim's talked a lot about
No,
Hygge.
I'm a Hygge kind of guy. We never miss an opportunity to talk about Hygge, and thankfully our second inspiration is the Boston Public Library's total embrace of Hygge, offering Hygge kits at branches, and today's Hygge Hour at the Lower Mills branch at 3 o'clock. In fact, every Tuesday from now until the end of March, it's billed as a, quote, peaceful hour with friends new and old. Critically, craft books, snacks, and more will be provided across the library system. People can rent out Hygge kits, whatever they are. We'll find out in a minute. Just check with your local branch for availability. So the number to call or text is 877-301-8970. How are you embracing Hygge? Reading a good book for distraction, getting lost in this hockey season for no reason in particular, like Marjorie and her whole staff. 877-301-8970. Before we take your calls and texts, here to help us get in the mood for a minute, we're joined at the library desk by Veronica Coven-Matasi. She's Reader Services Supervisor at the BPL. Veronica, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I had to come all the way across the room.
That is incredible.
Okay, so what is the library doing and why are you doing it?
So first of all, I want to preface this with every library is doing it differently. Whichever your branch is, you got to go in and ask them. It's a little bit of a mystery.
It's very Hygge, don't you think so? It's very
Hygge.
Yeah.
So the concept of Hygge is really, about being cozy, about being comfortable. I think we all can agree that the winter months in Boston are not conducive to feeling cozy unless you make them.
Excellent point. No, that's a good point.
So it's really just about embracing whatever makes you feel cozy, and each branch has really chosen to interpret that however they want. So I'm not going to spoil for you what any branch is putting in their Hygge kit. That's a surprise. It's a little bit of a blind box. But
you've got a Hygge sweater on.
It's
very cozy.
It's like
Thank
a Hygge shawl kind of thing.
Librarians are always Hygge.
Really?
Yeah.
I would quarrel with that, believe me.
Okay.
So let me just understand that. I know you don't want to spoil the surprise about specific kits. Give us a generic kit. Like what you get a blanket? What do you get? And what is the kit do
for you? Maybe a candle?
Small things. And I will say I can spoil the kit we gave away at the Central Library
please
because
do.
that already happened. But we will do again next year. So come back next year.
Okay.
So at the Central Library, it's all very small things. We put in some chocolate, some tea, some hot chocolate, a little tea light to help you set the mood. And at the Central Library in particular, we really lean into the reading aspect of coziness. So we also did a little bit of a blind box where we put in a cozy book that we picked out, but you couldn't pick the book. You had to go on faith.
Do you have a favorite? You're work at the library. Do you have a favorite cozy book? A couple of recommendations. Cozy wise.
Goodness. So I'm a big fantasy reader. So I really enjoyed Emily Wilde's the Emily Wilde trilogy by Heather Fawcett.
Okay.
Which is So if you're familiar with the concept of dark academia, this is light academia. She's a professor. She's investigating fairies in this kind of vaguely Scandinavian-seeming town. So she's on a research trip. But, nothing terrible is going to happen. She's got an amazing dog,
Scandinavian, the birthplace of Hygge.
That's right, Hygge.
Now, before you leave, Veronica, and we'll get to the calls and texts in a minute, 877-301-8970. We want to know your Hygge experiences. David Leonard is the head of the library. Is that correct?
Yes.
He doesn't appear to me to be a Hygge kind of guy. You obviously work with him.
I don't work with him. He's got that beautiful Irish accent.
He has a beautiful Irish accent. So is he, what's the verb for Hygge? Do you practice Hygge? Does David engage in the Hygge experience? Does he Hygge, if that's a verb?
He does drop by and check in on us.
He does? Yeah. Oh, well, that is Hygge-like. Well, enjoy today at Lower Mills. And every library's got one of these things?
Some libraries.
Some do. Where do you go to find out where and when?
So if you visit the library's website, which is bpl.org, and go to the events calendar, you can search for Hygge. We also have
Hygge.
We also have a web page just for Hygge, so bpl.org/HYGGE will take you to our landing page, and it has not only a list of branches. Their Hygge event may or may have already happened, but a list of participating branches, and we also have content there. Even if you can't come in, we have lists of cozy books. We made a cozy playlist just for you. So I really hope you'll check it out. It's really cute.
Veronica, you're great. It was great to meet you. Thank you so much. Happy Hygge to you.
And to you.
Yours, exactly.
Thank you very much for joining us. So the more I read about this, the more enthusiastic I am. You know, you can like spend the whole morning reading in bed with your cozy book and your little tea light in the corner and a nice warm shawl or sweater around you. It can be a noun, a verb, or an adjective, Jim.
Can?
Yes, you can be hoogling. Yes. And then you can do, you want to have cozy socks, apparently. That's very important. Nice wool cozy socks.
Oh, you mean like the red wool socks I gave years ago that you never wore?
I'm going to resurrect them because they're Hygge socks, and woolen Hygge socks are really, really big, and comfortable clothes, like kind of leggings or baggy clothes, things you wouldn't wear anyplace else. There are special Hygge pants that you want to wear that are very, they're non-binding pants. So
Could you say it again? Because you're not quite there. If I'm
Hygge.
Very close.
Okay.
Hygge. Okay. Thank you. 877-301-8097. Now, Marjorie mentioned fairly mundane things, like a soft sweater. By the way, you're supposed to have better. NPR, are they the source of all things Hygge?
They are.
Here's what they say you should do, both of which I did last night.
Yep.
One, you should make an ancestral altar. Have you done that before?
No, I haven't read. That's too much work.
I did that. And two, I did this. This is a quote from the NPR story. You should rotate out the cherished mementos on your bookshelves.
That's not.
Have you done that?
No, I don't want to do. I want to. That's not indulgent.
What do you want to do?
Things that are indulgent. They did have one good suggestion though, a comforting meal. If you're not going to do the hot chocolate or the tea, they have this great recipe. Melissa Clark writes in the New York Times: baked pasta with tomato sauce and ricotta. It's a very cheesy dish for lounging. But I think the thing is less about food than it is about being in your comfy pants, your Hygge socks, your Hygge pants, your Hygge sweater, your big
Hygge blanket
warm
is
blanket,
huge. Blanket.
The low light, maybe a candle there, and some hot chocolate or hot tea. That's the way to go, I think.
877-301
carrot sticks or anything like that.
8970.
Yeah.
We want to know about your Hygge experiences. And if we have any Scandinavian listeners who have direct experience, like back in the homeland kind of thing,
well,
we would love to hear that too.
We do have one person who's
We
throwing
do?
rain in our parade right
What
away.
is that?
Not much hoogling in the Kingdom of Denmark right now. Watch the joint press conference of the Prime Minister of Denmark and Greenland this morning. They're looking quite worried, says Linda, the Dane from Warwick.
By the way, you don't Hygge like 24 hours a day. After a stressful situation like that press conference, that's when Hyggeing, as you say, is the most valuable experience.
Bridget says that people in America can't Hygge because we don't have our health care.
Well, that may be. I mean, by the way,
she lived in Copenhagen for a while. Denmark is paradise. If everything I voted or advocated came to be, it's Denmark. Hygge only works when you have the comfort and security of basic human rights.
Well, by the way, in all seriousness, just for a second here, comfort is the key. And if you're anxious and worried about the fact that you don't have basic health care, it's pretty hard to get into the Hygge experience.
That's what Rufus Gifford said yesterday about living in Denmark. That it is about comfort and security and peace, and they're what you would call a welfare state over there. They take care of you.
You don't mean that in a pejorative way.
I don't. I mean it in the way they take care of you in childbirth. They take care of you in health care. They take care of your old age. They take care of a lot of these things. So you're not like a basket case every time you go to the grocery store worrying if you have enough money.
Let's take some calls. Hygge is the topic. Even if you're new to the term, you're obviously not new to the experience. If you have the line, most people describe it as this sort of a little bit close to what Veronica told us. It's like coziness of the soul, Marjorie. Rachel in New Hampshire, you are first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
So, couple of things about Hygge.
Very good.
Or Hygge.
Very good.
You can Hygge thyself, which is to Hygge yourself, make yourself feel comfortable.
Yeah. That was
and
it?
And we also have, I think the verb is for det hyggelig.
Hyggelig, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And what does that do for you? Yeah.
So that means it is comfortable. It is warming. It is where you are at peace. You're just lighting a candle, sitting at a fire, reading at a book.
How do you know so much about this, Rachel? You like Danish or something?
I lived in Denmark as a child.
Oh, my God. And was everybody...
My father was a Fulbright professor.
Oh, my goodness. Was everybody doing a little hugging around your house or what?
Absolutely. We lived in a small town, and we
oh my God.
We had a sort of a dormitory for the Folkehøjskole.
For the what?
The folk school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, Rachel, it's great to speak to you.
So
By the way, it just occurred to me, I'm about to play some sound discussion we had with a listener in 2024 in January, and the listener was Rachel. Was that you?
It was me.
Oh, my God. This is
so you're
incredible.
an expert. You're a Hygge expert.
Rachel, listen up. We're going to play something that was addressed to you a couple of years ago. I can't believe it's the same Rachel. Rachel, here is Andrea Cabral and me. I guess you were not here this day. In January of 24, this is courtesy of Nicole, our colleague, trying to figure out how to pronounce Hygge with the help of certain BPR listeners, I guess like Rachel. Here it is. Hygge, 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 there's Hygge.
Well, they're saying it
Hygge, 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 and Hygge, Hygge, Hygge time. Say it once,
Hygge.
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 Hygge, Hygge,
Hygge.
Hygge, Hygge, I'm doing my best, Rachel. So that was Rachel. That was inspired by the very same Rachel exactly 2 years ago.
Okay.
To the month. 877-301-8970 for more Hygge talk.
One of our longtime listeners says, this is Herkel Durkel all over again.
Well, it is a variation on that. Yeah, sure I do.
When you just kind of stay in bed and wrapped up in your nice warm down comforter and you're sitting there, maybe have your coffee and have your book and you really relax. God. And then somebody else says, Hygge for me can be captured in 2 words, sauna culture.
Yeah.
The others in the sauna.
I think sauna is how they remember we learned that?
Sauna.
How they pronounce it in the Scandinavian countries.
Don't they have like
Hygge in the
saunas
sauna.
everywhere?
Yeah, they do.
So you go from your Hygge
into
to
your
the sauna.
Yeah.
And then you go back to your Hygge. And what are we doing? We're running around like lunatics, wondering we're going to get dragged onto the street by ice agents.
Can I tell you something? I am not exactly the most, I know this will shock people, I'm not the most relaxed person, even when I'm not on the air. But let me tell you, when I even do a piece of what a Hygge-like experience it is, I bet you for you too, whether it's comfort food kind of thing, a warm drink, for example, on a cold night, or those kind of soft clothes that you're talking about, like the red socks I bought you that you never wore.
I'm going to find them, Jim. I'm going to find them tonight so I can have Hygge socks.
Why did you never, and by the way, I wasn't clear why you never wore them.
Because they were so thick. It didn't fit into any of my shoes. I couldn't wear them. So,
you know where I got them, by the way? I never told you this.
In Denmark?
Hygge.com is where they're bought at Hygge.com. 877-301-8970.
I recently came back from Quebec City where I went to a Nordic spa that was Hygge embodied. Multiple warm water pools along the St. Lawrence River, salt baths, hanging baskets you could curl up in and read a good book, fire pits, you name it, everything to relieve you from the cold winter. Yeah, that's a great one because apparently having a nook type thing. You know, some people have like breakfast nooks or reading
like
nooks.
A Hygge nook.
A Hygge nook is very important to the whole experience, Jim.
Andrea, you're
do you have any nooks over there in Cambridge?
I actually have quite a few. I have many nooks. I'm nook-laden in Cambridge.
And you know what else?
No, I don't.
Cream of wheat and oatmeal.
Cream of wheat. The only problem is
Hygge kind of food.
You got to put a lot of stuff on cream of wheat to make it tasty. You know, it's really
no, you
sort
don't.
of like
you
mushy.
Put cinnamon sugar and bananas.
Excuse me, that's called a lot of stuff.
And heavy cream.
No, you don't. Andrea, you're in Coventry, Connecticut. Welcome to the show. Hi. Marjorie, relax. Let's talk to Andrea. Go ahead.
Hello. I can't imagine anything on cream of wheat making it palatable.
Amen. Thank you, Andrea. I'm with you. Go ahead.
Wheat. My mother tried to convince me that ganche in Croatian was palatable. That's like polenta. And I couldn't get that down.
I can't eat polenta either. Go ahead.
No, well,
what do you think about Hygge?
You can't do it without a dog.
What?
Oh, a dog. That's right. You got to go out and buy a dog.
Preferably 3 dogs, which I have sitting here at my feet right now, one with his head in my lap. That's Emily. Trina and Sally are ensconced on my feet. And I can't imagine feeling cozy and comfortable without at least one big dog.
By the way, I have to say, that is a fairly compelling argument. I don't know if you need 3, but dog-free and Hygge don't sound like they belong together. That's a really good point.
Yeah, but you have to have a dog who isn't constantly pestering you to throw the ball or,
No.
I get one of those
So
Jack
these dogs-
Russell kind of things.
These dogs amuse each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And then when they're tired, they stack out on my feet.
I love that.
Or watch TV with me or my husband.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Very cozy.
And by the way, you want dogs who are, to quote Shirley, well-nourished is what you're looking
want
for.
well-nourished.
Andrea, that was
I think
an excellent
Saint
call.
Bernards.
Thank you.
You want a
yeah,
Saint
they don't
Bernard.
move
You
around
want a
much,
big
do
dog
they?
like that, or what do you call those big, huge dogs? I'll think of it in a minute. Sheepdogs.
Sheepdogs.
Sheepdogs. Those would be kind of good Hygge dogs. Zoe, our producer, says
What'd
she
she
also
say?
loves cream of wheat. Her partner calls it Victorian-era convalescent gruel. She, however, likes it very much.
Well, also, we should say, Zoe, who's about 30, goes to bed at 7 o'clock at night, which is the ultimate Hygge kind of
And apparently
thing.
one of our other astute listeners
This
says
is
that
Jamie. This
Jim
is
has a
Jamie.
red sex room
I do.
over there in Cambridge, so there are many nooks in the sex room.
Thank you, whoever
We
contributed
heard about that a couple of weeks ago. We were
Maybe we
shocked.
did. Let's move on. Tammy and Haverhill, you would be next in the Hygge Hour here on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I wanted to share that I looked up online Hygge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because my daughter goes to Marquette University.
Oh, that's great.
And a few years back, there was an article that Milwaukee is one of the top 10 cities for Hygge.
No.
So I forwarded the article to her so she and her friends could participate with Jim and Marjorie in Hygge.
And how'd that go?
I have no idea. I'll let you know when she responds.
Well, why is Milwaukee? Are there a lot of Nordic, Scandinavian people in Milwaukee? That may be it. Is that what it is?
There are a lot of Scandinavian people in Wisconsin. I'm not sure I would have said Milwaukee specifically, but...
That's fabulous. Could you do us a favor? If your daughter gets back to you in the next 10 minutes, can you get back to us? If not,
I
just
absolutely will.
do text us or something. Thank you for passing out or along the Hygge word, Tammy. Really appreciate it.
Okay, one of our texters, Kathy from Lexington, says it interesting. Hygge is apparently related to the English hug, according to AI. The origin of the word hug, first appearing in 1560s as Hugge, likely comes from
that
the
makes
Old
sense.
Norse word hugga, which means to comfort, which is linked to hug, evolving from a gesture for warmth and safety into a universal expression of affection. So there you go.
How'd you know that?
Because Kathy from Lexington just
she
sent
just
me
got a text.
an email. Yeah, she said
I
some
see.
theories connected to German Hegen, which is Hegen, which means to cherish.
Why do we care specifically about that? I'm just curious. Why do we care about that?
Well, I thought it was the original.
Oh, the origin is
the
important,
origin,
I guess
yeah,
it
was
is, yeah.
from the 1560s. People have been Hyggeing for centuries.
Can I tell you, until that most recent Hygge from you, I wanted to compliment you. Your improvement through the years. You've done this several times.
Hygge.
Say no.
Hygge.
No, not even close. Let's try it. Repeat after me.
Okay.
Hygge.
Hygge.
Exactly.
Hygge.
You have to position your lips in a particular way and just say, let it go. Hygge.
Yeah, here's a good one.
What's that?
Marjorie reads the text, and Jim says, why do we care?
No, I'm asking. I'm just
That's
asking.
BPR in a nutshell.
Annie in Concord, wow, that was scary. Annie in Concord, we're talking about Hygge right here on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hello. Okay, that's going pretty well. Annie. Well, Annie's gone. Annie. No, I don't think so.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, you're
there
there.
you are. There you are.
You thought we were calling
she
you,
was
right?
Hyggeing.
Hygge. Annie, what's your deal?
Well, if you're talking to me, are you talking to me?
What's
Yes,
your name?
we're talking
What's
to
your
you.
name?
Annie.
Well, that's
We're
why
talking
we
to
called you Annie.
Hi, Annie.
If your name was like Doris, I would have said Doris. Hi, Annie.
I'm sure there's more than one Annie in the
There
world.
must
Anyway,
be. Okay, let's try you for starters. Go ahead.
well, I actually had called to say that hug is closely related to Hygge.
Say it. Say
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Hygge.
Yeah, Hygge.
Yeah, and I just read a piece about the scientific benefits. I mean, the physiological benefits of hugging.
Yeah.
that it's really good for your nervous system, that it's grounding and calming measurably. So why can't we have our own hygge around here?
I love that.
And just hug more.
Hugging is we've done a lot of shows on hugging. Why are you making a face through the years?
No, hugging, when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it's bad.
Wait, Annie, I think you should stay tuned and listen to this, because they're obviously, you're talking about like when a man hugs you too long. Somebody you're not
too
engaged.
Long, too close. You really wonder what's going on there, Jim.
Got
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this a hug or is this...
Or are you glad to see me?
Assault.
Exactly. That is sort of assault.
Well, I think a lot of women out there know what I'm talking about.
You really totally destroyed the hygge mood there with that.
Yeah, you got to watch every
Tell
second.
us a story or two you may have on that subject.
I'm not going to tell you any stories.
I bet you that was back at the old Boston Herald, right?
She knows what I'm talking
I
about.
can look at her face. She knows.
There. She knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she's had a couple of hygges herself.
Linda and Warwick, thank you for calling.
Hello, Linda.
Stop.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda. I thought that was Linda for a second.
Hygge, Linda, what's your deal?
My deal is I'm Danish, and I have to tell you, you're mispronouncing the word completely.
Oh,
please
no.
help us. Go
Straighten
ahead.
us out.
Well, every time, Jim, you correct Marjorie, I have to tell you she's closer to the correct pronunciation than you are.
Woo!
What are you applauding for? What is wrong with these people?
It is pronounced.
Yeah.
It is pronounced hygge.
No.
Hygge.
No.
Hygge. Thank you, Linda.
No, not hygge.
Well, I want to make sure you were actually born in Denmark. What town were you born in?
I was born in a little village with 70 people on the island of Funen.
The island of who?
It's called Funen in English. It's very near where Hans Christian Andersen was born.
Oh, my God.
Oh, and the silver skates.
Okay, so Linda, teach us one more time. At the count of three, say it carefully and slowly, and we're going to mimic whatever you say. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
Hygge.
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 Yeah, not really. Not really.
No.
Well, don't go. Say it one more time. Sorry, one more time.
Hygge.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Linda's not impressed.
Linda, I'm going to call you after the show, so don't go out. Call you in a half hour. Linda, thank you for the call. So there's more you than I thought. I thought it was Hygge. Linda is saying it's Hygge.
I don't know.
Hygge.
I can't pronounce anything, so
well, if
I'm
you can't
not in
say
position.
it, you can't practice it. You know
well,
what I mean?
I don't know. I think I'm going home to the Red Sox and the tea light and the big blanket and the sweater and the pants. I'm going to check it out, Jim.
We have time for one more Hygge call. That would be Carol in Ipswich.
Hi, Carol.
Hello, Carol.
Well, hi there.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
And
Thank
to you.
So I have a direct experience and a corporate setting experience experiencing hygge. And we were consultants to Bang & Olufsen, which is located in Struer.
The music, the thing, company.
The audio,
whatever.
The audio, loudspeaker and electronics.
So what do you know about this? Pretty high end, too. What do you know about this?
Well, we were consultants to the company, so we got to visit several times.
Yeah.
And honestly, in their cafeteria, they have candles all day long.
The corporate cafeteria?
Yes. All right.
Wow.
So that's just to get you started. And we were invited to dinner at one of the electronic engineers' homes. And we were there before she returned from her day with the husband.
Yeah.
Well, he lit a whole group of candles all around the house. And she came in. She scolded him. You don't have enough. And she goes around and she's lighting more candles, and we were cracking up.
That is a beautiful...
It's such a part of the culture.
So did you bring... We got to go, but did you bring that tradition back to Ipswich or no?
I practice hygge. Absolutely.
That's fabulous. Carol, that was an excellent story. That was really, really moving,
maybe
actually.
my life would be different if I had 50 candles going 24 hours.
Jamie thinks the way you're going to practice hygge is by going home and watching the 2 remaining episodes of Heated Rivalry.
Heated Rivalry.
All Marjorie talks about is Heated Rivalry.
Well, if you haven't seen it, two very good-looking gay hockey players, and it's really something.
Okay.
Oh, to be young and
gay.
Whatever.
Okay. What are we doing? Oh,
We're done.
show's almost over. Jared, are you there or no?
I'm here. I can't see you, though.
Are you? Well, that's unfortunate for all
Do you know
involved.
about Hygge?
Or Hygge?
I didn't. I don't understand. So you light all the candles and then what?
Well, it's supposed to be about warmth and coziness.
You put on your red wool socks.
It's like kind of like being in bed all day long with a book, or conversely being in some big oversized chair with your big oversized dog and your blanket and your comfortable pants and a nice hot chocolate and your favorite book and candlelight and sort of warmth and coziness.
So that's not your kind of thing, or what?
And then you have to get the fire extinguisher. Because
oh my God!
1,400 candles.
What a loser!
Hey.
Try a little Hygge before you trash it.
That's Hygge to you.
What are you doing on the show there?
So other than Heedle Rivalry, my other favorite show.
Are you talking about Heedle Rivalry on your show today?
No, we're talking about my other favorite show.
What is it?
Which is called Breaking the Deadlock. I'm serious about this, by the way. It's on PBS. No gay hockey players, but this is about corralling a whole bunch of thought leaders, politicians, journalists, biographers like Walter Isaacson, people on both sides of the ideological spectrum. They get inside this room down at the New York Historical Society. They give them a scenario, maybe involving abortion rights or something, and then they have to hash it out over the course of the hour. And they do it with civil discourse. It's fascinating. The moderator, Aaron Tang, joins us.
That sounds great.
What's it called again?
Breaking the Deadlock.
Oh, Breaking the Deadlock. That's great.
And then Diane Paulus is here to talk to us about her Phantom of the Opera adaptation, the Immersive Phantom Masquerade, happening in New York right now.
Yikes,
wow,
fabulous
another
show.
Great show. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. Good luck. We'll be listening. Tammy from Haverhill, who just said, remember she passed along this thing to her daughter in Milwaukee. She called with an update. Her daughter is going ice skating, enjoying warm beverages, and petting the campus comfort dog to practice Hygge.
Lovely. That's lovely.
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thank you to everybody who came down to the Boston Public Library. You can keep up with us 24/7 wherever our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we'll be back at the Boston Public Library. Jared Bone from The Culture Show will join us. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will Zoom in at noon. Tufts International Affairs expert Daniel Dresner will join us. Food policy analyst Corby Kummer. Gawande, I'm a real groupie of his. A former assistant administrator for global health at USAID, a physician, and a brilliant writer and analyzer of health care issues. He's going to be with us at the BPL desk. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer, John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer, Jane Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Patrick Lally, Matthew Glover, Juan Jose Cadena, Olivia Corsillo, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Jared and the Culture Show are going to start right after we're done here on 89.7 GBH. I am Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you can tune in tomorrow, and have a great day.
Hygge, 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 Hygge.
On around town. We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Brown University pre-college programs, where academically motivated high school students experience college life, nurture their diverse interests, and make new friends. Applications for summer 2026 open January 14th. precollege.brown.edu. Against the backdrop of Mount Kilimanjaro, explore the complex lives of the majestic elephant bulls on the next episode of Nature. Don't miss Tusker, Brotherhood of Elephants, tomorrow at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, what happens when you corral former governors, members of Congress, and political strategists in a room and hand them a constitutional crisis? That's the premise of the PBS series Breaking the Deadlock, a show that stress tests our political system with high-pressure simulations. We'll talk with law professor Aaron Tang about what these thought experiments reveal about power, fear, and the moments when reasoning breaks through. Then we slip on a mask and enter the Paris Opera House by way of Masquerade, the off-Broadway immersive reimagining of the Phantom of the Opera. It's a gothic, candlelit, and adventuresome spin across salons, stages, and shadowy back rooms. Tony Award-winning director Diane Paulus joins us to talk about turning Andrew Lloyd Webber's mega musical into an intimate experience. And we visit Los Angeles by way of Pedro Alonso. If you've been wondering what's happened to some of the Confederate monuments removed in this country, a number of them have resurfaced and have been brazenly reimagined by contemporary artists. He takes us through that exhibition and more. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Americans see partisan politics as a barrier to governing. According to the Pew Research Center, about 8 in 10 people say Republicans and Democrats can't even agree on basic facts, making it harder for the country to solve its biggest problems. Politics has become a language of stalemate on immigration, policing, voting rights, and our climate. Even when problems are abundantly clear, the process of finding solutions grinds to a halt. Partisan ideologies calcify, trust collapses, and public debate becomes more about domination. Forget consensus. Enter the PBS series Breaking the Deadlock. Each hour-long episode assembles heavyweight officials and decision-makers, former governors, judges, members of Congress, and veteran journalists. Sitting with side by side, they're asked to address a polarizing scenario erupting before them, like a breach of executive power or the 10 Commandments being placed in a local classroom. Everyone works from the same set of facts and has to make decisions as the fictional scenario unfolds moment by moment. In their forthcoming episode, A Matter of Life and Death, the group grapples with a situation involving reproductive rights and the right to die.
This is a story that's going to lead to some hard questions.
I think every pregnancy is perfect.
Is it perfect if a woman dies?
Her body, her choice. Now it's your daughter. You don't want her to have the choice?
I'm not comfortable with this.
Would you try to go after her? Prosecution, jail time, fines?
I'll go to jail.
There's no turning back.
The goal of Breaking the Deadlock isn't consensus or a resolution, but to reveal reasoning, how people can engage in civil discourse even when disagreement is profound. The series is moderated by Aaron Tang, professor of law at UC Davis. He joins us now to talk about it all. Aaron Tang, welcome to The Culture Show. It's a great pleasure to have you here. This show is phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Jared, and thanks for having me.
Well, I've been watching these episodes, and I have to say I am among the many Americans who think, has the time passed where we could actually come together in the same room, breathe the same air, side by side, and actually have a civil conversation about issues that clearly divide us? And your show reveals that it can happen.
That's the hope. I mean, there's no question. It's harder. It's rarer than it was before. When I was a kid growing up, I remember watching, presidential debates on TV in rooms where my parents, disagreed with me. One, my parents was Republican, one was a Democrat. That was a very common thing. And it feels like nowadays, right, we've siloed up. We have such rare occasions where we can sit down and talk with people on other sides of issues. That's what Breaking the Deadlock is trying to model. That it is still possible to have some of the heavyweights, people who really don't agree on fundamental questions, sit down and have these tough conversations, and we can all listen to each other even if we don't agree.
Well, this is a show that is so desperately needed for this moment. And as I mentioned, the forthcoming episode, people will be able to watch, but they can also go back and any moment and should watch at any moment on the PBS app or other mechanisms of streaming so they can exactly understand how people can come together. But how was the creation of this show born out of this moment?
Sure. Yeah. So the GBH leadership team, John Verdar, Lori Donnelly, Andy Lack, legendary TV producer, TV newsman, CBS News. The three of them got together and said, hey, PBS used to run this series. It was called the Fred Friendly Seminars in the 90s. And they were admittedly a little drier, more academic, but they put real life decision makers in a hypothetical scenario. And it turns out that something really important happens when you ask people who often disagree with each other, what do you think about this hot button issue that's happening right now? They're going to retreat into their talking points, usual corners, argue, try to, as you said in your intro, dominate each other. But if you make it rhyme with reality, you give them hypothetical situations, it's much more likely that they won't be dug in and they'll listen and engage. And so that's what the philosophy behind Breaking the Deadlock is. Put these people in real life like scenarios so they can play out the values that are underneath.
But here's what I find fascinating. You say it's a hypothetical situation, and it is a hypothetical. However, if you as the audience member and you as the moderator begin really paying attention to the faces of your panelists, very quickly, it looks like they are sliding into this world as though it's reality. And you can feel the tension, you can feel the emotions bubble to the surface. And so that's why I think that this is so poignant, because these are issues that these individuals are grappling basically with regularly. But here they're treating it, I feel like, as though they're real.
I think that's right. And not only is it real for them, but it is real time. Our panelists don't know the roles that they're going to have. They show up sight unseen, and they're basically trusting us not to ambush them. And we try our level best to be fair and even-handed. But our panelists show up and the cameras start rolling and we say, here's who you are. You're the governor of the state of Pennsylvania. You're a parent of a child who's having this challenging problem, right? And we give them the facts and they have to wrestle with this decision in real time. And I think that's what creates the real emotion. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it's surprising. There are some really surprising moments of agreement, consensus between folks you might not expect.
Talk a little bit, if you would, and I know of course, there's a whole team doing this, but about the booking of guests. So we're seeing people on both sides. We're seeing major people who have been incendiary in the past, people like Ann Coulter, who are all coming together. What's the thought that's been given, and what do you have to do to bring all of these people into the same room?
Yeah, first of all, it's an incredible team. Nina Weinstein's an executive producer, Alyssa Lithoff, booking producer. They are just incredible at assembling an all-star cast. But I would say, Jared, the guiding philosophy here is we don't do anybody any favors if we put a bunch of milquetoast, centrist moderates who are all there to smile and sing Kumbaya on TV, because that's not America, right? America is, for better or worse, in some ways better, I do think, explosive. There are flamethrowers, grenade launchers on the right and on the left. And we have to bring people into this room and have them on the panel with strong views. So that's why you'll see folks like Ann Coulter and folks on the left who are hold very strong views. And our hope is that when they get in this room and they see that people are genuinely listening to them, they will know that the goal here is not to destroy the other side, but rather to reason and listen in good faith.
How honest do you find the panelists are being?
That's the $1 million question. I think the best thing I can say is for viewers to tune in, watch, and make their own judgments. I don't think it's for me to say that one of our panelists was being disingenuous with this answer or that answer. It is true that there may be a tendency for people to want to be more conciliatory, more compromising on live TV in a room with people they disagree with. But actually, that is the exercise we want to happen with all Americans in these conversations. It is much harder for me to spout some incendiary thing in front of people who I know disagree with that. It's much easier if I'm on my keyboard on social media firing off 140 characters into the ether, right? That's part of the problem. And so I think one way or another, something good happens when you get these folks who often disagree, strongly held views in a room, being reasonable, seeing the nuance and complexity from issues that are genuinely hard.
I'm speaking with Aaron Tang, the moderator of Breaking the Deadlock, a PBS series. He's professor of law at UC Davis. The next episode airs Tuesday, January 20th on PBS. It's also available on pbs.org and the free PBS app. We don't want to give too much away, but I do want to ask you about what it was like to film the latest episode, which is about reproductive rights and the right to die. If ever there was an episode that would elicit incredible emotion, it would be this one. How was it to wade into this subject matter with these panelists?
That's exactly right. It was the hardest episode we've had to do because folks on both sides have such strong viewpoints. I think those viewpoints will come across in the episode. You'll see that. But it was also incredibly rewarding because just like in the prior episodes, people were genuine. No one, pretends to be something other than they are. Folks don't agree. It won't surprise you, Jared, when I say we did not solve debates over, difficult end of life decisions or when life begins or other hard moral choices that our panelists encounter along the way, the government's role in these hard choices. There's disagreement all along the way. But what is remarkable is how people from both sides get really emotional, sharing some personal stories that are surprising and unexpected. And by the end, it's almost a cathartic process for the panelists to sit down and realize, you know what? The other side didn't try to destroy me, didn't belittle me. They disagreed. We disagreed, but we did so in a way that kind of reminds me of the good old days of the 80s and 90s when we could disagree without being disagreeable.
What is it like to be in the room as this is happening? Because I think even though you say you're not out to change somebody's mind, and we know how unrealistic that can be, there are gradations of change, which I've seen in your episodes, concessions that people make, an understanding that people acknowledge from figures. Do you feel that tension? Do you feel the change as it's unfolding?
Oh, absolutely. There's a moment early in the show during the first scene of the show that's airing on January 20th, A Matter of Life and Death, where one panelist takes a very strong, strident view. They're going to answer this question this way. And then they're asked to imagine, well, what about the parents of this other person who's implicated in that decision? Don't they have a right to know? And immediately she's like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. That is much harder. I'm not sure anymore. And those are the golden moments on the left and on the right, because none of us are perfect. I make mistakes every day, right? And what's missing, what's changed, I think, for the worse about our country is it's much harder for us to admit when we didn't have all the information, to admit that things are harder than we first thought. And if we can model that even a few times per episode for our viewers, that there's no shame in saying, you know what, this is harder than I thought it was, that would be really good for our country.
And you have many episodes in the can, as it were. As I said, people can go back to the PBS app and to pbs.org to watch. What is the feedback you've received? Have you had the sense that you're enlightening people in that regard, that it's incumbent upon us to slow down and listen?
Yeah, so I would say, and this has maybe been the most encouraging thing. The feedback we've got falls into three buckets. I would say most of it, 70, 80% of it is very positive. We need more of this. This is the honest give and take that America truly needs to reproduce right now. We do get criticism, but what's lovely is the criticism, I think, comes in equal parts from the left and the right. There are folks on the right that say, oh, there go the folks on the left again, on their moral high horse or whatever. There are folks on the left who say, how dare you have these people from the right on the panel, right? If you're getting attacked on both sides pretty equally and praised by a bunch of folks in the middle, as it were, that's a sign to me that we're probably doing something right.
The show also is interesting because it really allows us to understand where the public dialogue comes from in this country. And this is why you have drawn figures who are journalists or who are in social media, why you have politicians, why you have people from some of the think tanks. What's the thinking behind where you're inviting people from to participate in terms of what their background will yield on the show?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So, I think that the idea is we need folks on our panel to represent the true diversity of views in American discourse. So in a prior episode and multiple episodes, we had folks from the Heritage Foundation, obviously a very conservative organization. We've had panelists from Moms for Liberty, a very well-known right-leaning organization. We've had folks from, the Lincoln Project, Rick Wilson in a prior episode, elected officials from who are Democrats and Republicans. So, this is, I think, aligned with what I was saying earlier. We owe it to the viewer to show them, is it possible for people from really different viewpoints to still sit down and see the nuance and complexity? Sometimes it might not be. There are small moments where, folks are just dug in, and that's realistic too. We want Americans to see that. But often it's not. Often you'll see that, whatever team a viewer is on, their team will make a concession. And every time we see that happen, right, the American public, the viewer can say, you know what? If it's okay for the person I admire to make that concession to a neighbor, it's okay for me too to do the same.
What about the politicians and the media who come into this? And what have you seen, what has been revelatory to you about how they process these moments, these controversies, and how they're going to use it in their forums?
Yeah. I mean, I think politicians are especially interesting. You asked the question earlier, how honest are the panelists being? I think there's a lot of reason to think the non-politicians on the panel are being genuine, right? They don't have a constituency. They're not running for office, right? There is a question about whether a person who's running for office, when they come on our show, whether they're playing a character or whether they're being themselves. My own instinct, and again, the viewer should decide for themselves. My own intuition is that by using this hypothetical format, we're never asking a current politician to weigh in on an actual debate, an actual bill that they have to pass or some controversial public event, but always some hypothetical thing. But they're more able to speak from the heart, right? There are no consequences, fewer consequences to doing so. But I guess I'll wrap up with this. The politicians who've been on the panel are very, very effective communicators. I often find myself persuaded by both folks on the right and on the left, like, wow, that's a skillful answer.
Well, now I'm bringing myself into this, or at least my business into this, because I'm thinking back to a prior episode where I saw both Soledad O'Brien, the journalist, and Ann Coulter, the columnist and social media, who has her force, her presence on social media, both acknowledge that they're going to run with these stories because they understand the power for their respective industries of amplifying them and riding them to some degree.
Yeah, and the journalism piece is a constant theme throughout, and we've struggled with how to wrestle with it. The mainstream media may not quite have the cachet that it used to. People are certainly going and getting information from alternative sources more than they did in the 80s or 90s. But mainstream media absolutely still has a important role to play, and so in a lot of our episodes, we will weave through, whatever the underlying substantive issue is, life and death, choices, government role. We'll also weave in some journalism questions, right? What is the role of the media in covering this? What is the trade-off between ratings or clicks, right, and truth? So these are important questions, sort of meta questions that are important to wrestle with too.
We played a little clip at the beginning, and it sounded like maybe it can get really sensational, but it really doesn't. People stay very measured as they're having these conversations. Again, going back to what I said at the very beginning, it reminds us that we could possibly be in a point in this country where we can have civil discourse. Why do you think it is that there isn't the chair throwing, there isn't the screaming, there isn't the storming off the set?
I think it's because and this is, maybe I'm naive for believing this, Jared. I think if you get a bunch of well-meaning Americans in the same room and they all genuinely want our country to be the best that it can be, people to have the good life, and they may have different views of what the good life is, but opportunity, freedom at the base of it, we all agree on that. We just disagree on how to get there. When you bring 10 folks like that into a room, there is no chair throwing because you look around the table and you see fellow patriots in a journey who are trying to make this country a more perfect union. We're not trying to own each other. We're not trying to destroy each other. Now, I could be wrong. There might be a future episode where somebody storms off the stage. It hasn't happened yet. And there are heated moments. This episode, as much as any, where you'll see anger on the faces of some of the panelists, depending on the questions they get asked. And that's real. That's real life, too.
Well, final question is basically the finality of your day when you're doing these tapings is what happens after these conversations have been had and these people are in very different places before from when they sat down, not knowing the part that they were going to have to play, a mother of somebody who might be having an abortion, or a son of a father who, do you drive him to end his life if it's medically assisted? Do they all come together? What's it like after the taping?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix. It's a mixture. Some panelists are asked to inhabit roles that are pretty tough, right? To think about questions like, you have to imagine if your father is ill, terminally ill, what would you do at the end of his life? That's a draining set of questions for people to think about. I will say that there's a green room afterwards, and I have been impressed, pleased, surprised to see people from camps you traditionally might think disagree, from the right and left, having conversations, sitting down and saying, you know what, like, I didn't know that we were going to be able to have this conversation. I've never met you before, but everything I've read on the internet, on the news, has been, I've expected us to go at it. But this was a great way to break the ice, a great way to meet. Not everybody, but enough of those conversations that give me hope that Americans, we are good people at the end of the day. There are forces working against us in this new media environment and the algorithm that are amplifying the disagreement. But at the end of the day, when we sit down and we try to listen to each other, we can find more common ground than we thought.
Well, your show and you have instilled hope in me, too, as I've watched many of these episodes. Thank you for that. And congratulations. I have to say, I've spent a lot of my career in television. What you're doing as a host in these scenarios is extraordinary. So congratulations on that as well.
Thanks so much, Jared. Appreciate it.
We're talking about the PBS series Breaking the Deadlock, moderated by Tang, professor of law at UC Davis. The latest episode is titled A Matter of Life and Death. It airs next Tuesday, January 20th on PBS. Check your local PBS stations for showtimes. Breaking the Deadlock is also available to stream on pbs.org and the free PBS app. Again, thank you. Coming up, the Phantom of the Opera is haunting off-Broadway by way of a reimagined immersive experience titled Masquerade. Tony Award-winning director Diane Paulus joins us for that conversation. She's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
This station's arts and culture programming.
If you really want to know what's going on in this country...
Hi, my name is Isaac. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
You have to get away from the extremes and listen to the middle.
This is Samantha calling from St. Louis, Missouri.
On The Middle with Jeremy Hobson, I take your calls live on some of the biggest issues we face.
While I have hope for change, there are so many issues that I feel like are not being discussed on either side.
Join me each week on The Middle.
Thursday night at 9 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Cambridge Savings Bank. CSB is committed to improving the financial well-being of local small businesses through financial education and banking services. Learn more at cambridgesavings.com. Member FDIC. And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition in East Sandwich now through January 30th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250. masshumanities.org. And the Museum of Fine Arts, celebrating MLK Day on January 19th. A full day of performances, art making, and special exhibitions, including Winslow Homer in watercolor. Free for Massachusetts residents. More at mfa.org.
You can make a lasting impact on the station that has provided local news and conversations throughout the years by naming GBH in your estate plans. Find out more online at gbh.org/planning.
Masquerade, an immersive adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's blockbuster musical, The Phantom of the Opera, that can only be accessed with a secret password, where you step off the Manhattan sidewalk and are quickly deposited in the lush confines of the Paris Opera House, champagne in hand. Instead of sitting in the dark, you don a mask, join a small crowd, and proceed through a 6-story maze of candlelit salons, steep catwalks, and tension-filled dressing chambers as the performance unfolds all around you. Joining us to talk about this wild new way into the iconic show is Tony Award-winning director Diane Paulus. You know her, of course, as the artistic director of the American Repertory Theater. She's the director of Masquerade and worked for 3 years with composer Andrew Lloyd Webber to craft it. Diane Paulus, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
Well, what place did the Phantom of the Opera have with you even before you began to think about adapting it?
I mean, it's
an iconic musical. You can't be in the theater world and not know it, breathe it, have heard it. I had people audition for me using songs from the show. And I had also seen the film. So I knew of it very well and had experienced it. And then when it was announced to be closing, I went back and saw it again. And I'll tell you, the thing that I was so impressed by was how immersive the show was, how Prince production, it was so ahead of its time. From the second that chandelier resurrected and flew out over the audience, and the Phantom's voice being in surround sound in the Broadway house, and him haunting up in the proscenium. It had, I think, this immersive impulse, on Andrew and Hal Prince's part that showed me the DNA of what could happen with this incredible show.
And how did it happen? Did you just call up Andrew Lloyd Webber? How does it happen?
How does something like this happen?
Broach that with him?
Well, it was a turning point for this legendary show to close on Broadway, and Andrew wanted to do something with it. And the idea of maybe a pop-up event was surfaced, and then it became clear, if you're going to do an immersive version of Phantom of the Opera, let's do it, capital D, let's make it happen. And it so happened that this property on 57th Street, which, if people remember New York back in the day, it was the old Lee's art supply store. And I grew up in New York in the 70s. I went with my mother to that art supply store. That was a time when there was a 4-story art supply store. That doesn't happen anymore. To go and buy my fancy set of colored pencils. So I had been in that building, but it had been vacant and was sort of a swing property, and they weren't sure what was going to happen to it. It was on the docket to be maybe sold. Sotheby's was interested. It was unclear what would happen to it. And Brookfield Properties, as a real estate company, got excited about taking a step into the live entertainment world, and hence the marriage of that building, that site, with this opportunity to reimagine Phantom in an immersive way.
Well, I just described at the outset some of my memory from just having seen the show very recently myself. You were there. What do you want to tell people to prepare people about the experience that you and your team have created for them?
That's a really good question. How do you describe this show? If people know immersive theater, and many audience might know Sleep No More, that started here at the ART, that is kind of a choose-your-own-adventure. That was a choose-your-own-adventure. You could wander in your own time and space across, up here in Brookline, it was 40,000 square feet. In New York, it was 80, 90,000 square feet. And we felt with Phantom, we wanted to deliver the story. We wanted to be kind of on the rails, so to speak, not off the rails. We wanted to, lead an audience and curate your experience. We also knew this is a musical. So the opportunity to feel the music, to have it emanating around you and, 360 experience, and to have live singing was going to be a signature. And live singing, not, from a Broadway stage 50 feet away, but literally 2 feet away from you.
Well, this is the best way I found to describe it after it was a series of chamber concerts.
Yes.
Because you are this small group and you're moving from room to room. The cast is among you, barely any remove, just sometimes inches away. I was brushed by the Phantom.
Yes.
I was pulled by Christine to go down these stairs. How does that change the story as you crafted it this way to put people more intimately in what is happening in this world?
Yeah, I think it increases the level of experience. You can't detach and distance yourself. You are in it. You're breathing the same air. You're making eye contact. Christine sits down in her dressing room at her piano stool and looks to you, and you're a foot away. And she looks in your eyes and says, "Twisted every way." She confesses her complete, soul that is in a crisis. Or the Phantom sings Music of the Night. And I love that you say chamber concert, because I thought, what would it be like if 60 people sat in the darkness with candles and the Phantom sang to you? Not just Christine, but to you, So that experience invites an audience to frankly have what I have all the time as a director.
Right.
When I'm in a rehearsal hall, I'm sitting 2 feet away from everything. And, it's that old thing of like, it's never as good as it is in the rehearsal hall. So for me as a director, it was like, how do I open up that experience to an audience where they feel like they are in it with it? And in our case, we're not doing the whole Phantom of the Opera, right? We very deliberately call it Masquerade. It's a new work inspired by Phantom of the Opera, where the premise is you are invited as an audience member to the Phantom's private masquerade. You are dressed up, as you mentioned. You're dressed in your black, white, silver, formal cocktail attire. You wear a mask, and then you enter his mind. So that was also a lens into the story where you get to experience it from his viewpoint, where you get to see things that you've actually never seen before in the stage show.
And why is that important? Because if you look at the subject matter of the show, of the Phantom of the Opera, not Masquerade, maybe you can raise an eyebrow or two because he is a man who is detaining a woman, and we really don't know what's going on there, but we do learn more about that in Masquerade.
Yeah, I felt so inspired to empower Christine, who's the young ingenue, right? Not to be a victim in this, but rather position her as the most courageous, curious, enlightened young corps de ballet dancer, who has this spiritual soul and is this artistic soulmate to the Phantom. And she's the one who's not afraid to open the mask, or to not open the mask, take the mask off and look at what's behind the mask. So I was telling all the actresses, and there's 6 of them, we can get into that too,
yes,
but there are 6 of them, I would say to all of them, like, play Christine like she's Joan of Arc. She's like the heroine in this story for this man who is disfigured at birth, who has a facial difference, who has been exploited as a freak at a carnival, who is a genius artist, who has never been loved ever in his life. And, she's the one that's able to say, I see you. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I see your genius. I want to know you. But you have to take that mask off, and that's hard for someone who's lived through that kind of trauma.
It's an extraordinary way into him. Let me just pause for a moment. You just talked about the circus freak, and we're led into the circus when we're given an understanding of what he came from. How did you find these acts? There is a man who does things with fire. And again, as you say, you're just inches away from these people. He lit himself on fire. He swallowed fire and then spit it back out. I've never, even for all the theater I've seen,
Yes.
I've never seen anything like it. How,
Yes.
Where and how did you find this person?
They exist. They are incredible. Downtown circus performers, club performers. It's a whole community of incredible artistry that do acts like the Fire Act. And in the carnival, I thought that was the chance for us to understand, what did the Phantom see when he was the freak sideshow, but, caught in his cage and peering through those bars. What was he seeing? So he saw this fire act. I had this idea of he saw a fire act because if you know the show, he uses fire. He's like a magician. He throws fire. The famous scene of fire in the stage show. So I thought, how did he learn about fire? Because he was at that circus, at that carnival, watching someone do a fire act, and he got that into his kind of toolkit. Same thing with the magical lasso. That's a big thing in the show, right? He's got this ability with the magical lasso. So we have a circus act that's doing a rope trick. So that was the idea of, what was he, against all odds, absorbing and taking, even the cape, right? There's a carnival barker with a black cape. I was like, he saw that cape, and when he escaped and kind of Madame Giry took him to the Paris Opera, he saw a black cape on a costume rack, and he said, you know what? I'm going to take that and make it my own this time. The person who exploited me, I'm going to wear that cape. So it was sort of the origin story of, where did the Phantom as a persona come from?
I'm speaking with Tony-winning director Diane Paulus about Masquerade, which is playing now in New York. What was it like to work with Andrew Lloyd Webber on this? And I'll give my own tiny little perspective. I spent a couple of nights with him in the spring for the Boston Speakers Series, and for a man who did a piece that's decades old now, he still has such affection and enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, he's a remarkable artist. I mean, so many works he's done that like impacted me as a young person in the theater. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar, probably top of the list, Evita. But look at what he was doing. I mean, making a musical about Jesus Christ, about Eva Peron, T.S. Eliot's poem about cats, Starlight Express, people on roller skates. He was so, I think we tend to think of Andrew Lloyd Webber, we're like, that man who's just like, the formula hit maker. And it's like, actually, no. He was experimenting and pushing the boundaries of musical theater subject-wise and form-wise. So to get to work with him and see his eyes light up when I said, we're going to do something that's never been done before, he was so up for that. And the amount of music that he created for this, right? They're all the hits that you know and love, but you are traveling in time and space through the 6 stories, and music is constantly accompanying you. So he created all these leitmotifs, and I'll never forget, we were late in previews, and I said, I need something more to take us from this room to that room, and he came up this whacked out kind of inversion of one of the themes of the show where you could hear kind of like rats scurrying in the background, and it was like a sound of something dropping on a xylophone. I mean, he was so up for the experiment of it. And also he taught me so much. Obviously, he knows the show so well. So sitting with him and hearing all the stories of how he created it, the being inspired by Paganini, the historical violinist figure, and how that impacted him in the creation of the show. And then we sort of create an homage to Paganini with a live violinist in our show. So there were all these things that he was speaking to me about that were just these gems and jewels that I could grab and say, well, that we're going to put in the show, and that we can take, and let's keep opening the doors to things that maybe you weren't able to do that time to.
Well, as you say, also belying the notion that here is this formulaic hitmaker, he's also having a resurgence right now. Cats is about to go back to Broadway as a drag ball. There's Your Phantom. Sunset Boulevard just had this amazing revival in New York. There are so many of his shows where a next generation of people, of creatives, are coming in and finding that there is deep resonance to today.
Yes. I think, again, it's a tribute to the fact that these shows have that capacity for reinterpretation because they're so theatrical, they're so out of the box, right? It's not like you have to impose something that just feels like it's trying to force something into something it's not. I mean, that's whacked out cats in a spaceship.
I remember
what I mean?
The first time I saw it, it's really all about cats.
It's really all about cats. And I think the genius of, Bill, who's my dear colleague, Bill Rausch, and his reimagination of this as a drag ball is, it's a new idea, but somehow it's meeting the material. Right. And I think with Phantom, this idea of the love triangle between the Phantom and Raoul and Christine, and the idea of the masquerade. And we did a lot of research on 19th century masquerade balls and kind of the theatricality of being invited to a party and then seeing these theatrical pageants, kind of into the dark night of the, the party that you're taking to places you've never been before. Those are all in Phantom. So I think the resurgence is because it's in the work, and also Andrew, who is the living artist, is open to it. So really, kudos to him for being open to this next generation of exploration with his work.
Well, final question. As you just alluded, this is a giant jigsaw puzzle, which I didn't realize was happening until, as we end, we're in this great space where you can get a drink after the show. You can process everything.
Yes.
People are taking pictures everywhere. And then the room began to fill up. And I thought, well, there weren't this many people who were traveling with me from room to room. And that's when it dawned on me that there were multiple shows happening at the same time. How on earth do you do this without anybody having a sense of what's happening and to have cast members doing what? How does it all unfold?
I know. It actually broke my brain, to be honest. It was so complicated. This was the hardest thing I've ever done. So challenging, but also the most thrilling. I mean, basically, there's 6 shows a night. So pulses of 60 people are going through the experience, one after the other, and we have the whole thing kind of like a Swiss watch on a timer, so that everything is timed to the second. And it took, weeks and weeks of previews and beta tests and charts and a couple of amazing young math majors that I nabbed. I was like, I'm not good with charts. You're going to have to do this for me, so that everything is timed and moving through the space. So you're never aware, that this is going on in the whole building. But we had to invent the technology for it. We have technology that is live mixing all the mics across 6 floors.
So you're talking about 6 Phantoms, for instance.
Yes, 6 Phantoms, 6 Christines, 3 Madame Giry's, 3 Raouls, and then there's some blessed, incredible performers that do all 6 shows in one night.
1 Fire Eater?
1 Fire Eater, yes.
Wow. That's a show, that's a revelation in and of itself when I finally realized what was happening. Yeah,
yes,
well, congratulations. Yes. It would have melted my brain. It wouldn't have broken my brain. It would have melted it. You could ask the team every day they want to time out the show with me. I can never figure out the timing.
Yes, exactly.
You do the math. Diane, Paulus, always great to see you. Congratulations on the show. It was so much fun.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Diane Paulus is a Tony Award-winning director and the artistic director of the American Repertory Theater. She's the director of Masquerade, the immersive adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera. It's playing on West 57th Street. To learn more, go to masqueradenyc.com. Well, coming up, Culture Show contributor Pedro Alonso is here to take us on a tour through Los Angeles, including what's happened as contemporary artists have gotten their hands and tools on removed Confederate statues. He's next on the Culture Show. Stay with us.
More people die from tuberculosis each year in India than anywhere else in the world.
1.5 million people die of TB every year globally. Of these, about 27%, are in India alone.
Now, innovations in TB diagnosis are giving doctors their hope that patients will receive proper care sooner. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865.
Support for GBH comes from you and the law firm of McLean Middleton.
We represent middle market businesses, the kind of businesses that you see every day out in your community.
John Colucci, Managing Director.
We really appreciate the opportunity to sponsor GBH. There's only a few places where you can really make an impact in a very tangible way and in a way that helps you feel good about making our community a better place, and we're happy that GBH is letting us be a part of that.
To learn more, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
Securely and confidentially contact GBH News by messaging us on the Signal app. Visit gbhnews.org/investigations for more information. gbhnews.org/investigations.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. It's time for a recurring feature, AI Actual Intelligence, where we tap into the most interesting thinkers in our region because their insights and observations are totally original and algorithm-free. We're joined now by Culture Show contributor Pedro Alonso. He is an independent curator. He is taking us to Los Angeles by way of a number of museum exhibitions that he's just seen. And you're answering questions for me, Pedro. First of all, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Great to be here.
Happy New Year. I think we can still say it if we haven't seen each other.
I do. I do too. Happy New Year.
Well, we know the stories of so many of the Confederate monuments that were removed and then trucked away somewhere. Well, now there's an answer and there's an interpretation of where some of these monuments have landed, as you just found out in Los Angeles. What did you see?
So there's this really powerful exhibition. Sadly, I was only able to see a portion of it at the Brick. The majority of the show is at Mocha, but the Geffen at Mocha is closed on Wednesdays. Note to self: don't go on Wednesdays because the other section of the museum is open. But the Brick had this fabulous piece by Carol Walker, which is a bronze statue of Stonewall Jackson on a horse that has been. She took it down. It was decommissioned in Richmond, Virginia. And actually, it was the decommissioning of that piece that led to the protests that got violent, where the man rammed into
in Charlottesville.
Forgive me, Charlottesville. Yes, sorry, Charlottesville. Rammed into the woman. And there was documentation there that highlighted that it was a student who sent a petition to City Hall that started this process. And it was the rejection, right, and then the counter protesters to the protesting that led to to this horrible act, right, this man running over, driving his car into the public. But this sculpture, she got the artist Carol Walker got her hands on it and cut it up and created this kind of repositioning of the piece, where it looks like this kind of tired monster, like a Jabberwocky, dragging parts of it, and it's alone in this large room. It's just a single piece, and it's stunning. It's fabulous. They did an excellent job.
What is it? Yeah, well, it was so interesting to me when that debate was first raging about whether the Confederate statues should be taken down, whether they would be taken down, and then the street artists began tagging them, and suddenly these Confederate statues were a canvas for all manner of art and spray paint and interpretation, and it was fascinating to me how the object, despite all of its history, could change. How do you interpret what that transformation is like once artists, or anyone really, has access to these pieces?
Well, I think a lot of the power of art comes from context, right? And this rich history. So when you recontextualize it, when an artist or someone transforms it, it gives it new meaning. And I think it reminds us that, our histories are very much alive. Histories are not these sort of atrophied linear process, but it is something that is always changing. And a lot of times it changes on our perspective and ideas from which we look back onto it. And the real issue with these Confederate monuments is that many of them were put up to remind people of this sort of white supremacist legacy, which is really what it is, and it was kind of a symbol of power, and so removing them, I understand why people want to remove them, but I also think it's important to have that reminder, right? Or at least to have something from which to have a discussion around, right? And there have been many artists who have done that. I think Carol Walker did an amazing job. I also think there's an artist in New York named Esteban Jefferson, who was looking at the protests surrounding the George Floyd murder, and the vandalization. I think it was a statue of George Washington in New York, and he was photographing the process of how it was being vandalized and how the safety cones were put on the sculpture and the statue and just this transformation. And he made a series of works about it as well. And I think there's tremendous power, right? I also think that, a lot of times there isn't much we can do against the state, right? If you look at what's happening in Minneapolis now with these activists who are simply following, the ICE agents who are being beat up, who are being attacked with impunity, right? Because the ICE agents are, at this point, have yet to face any charges, or no one's stopping them from beating people up for no reason. And clearly the ICE agents are being antagonized by the activists, but they're not being violent against them. And I feel like that, attacking the symbols is a very effective way to send out a message. And as a lover of street art, I believe in attacking symbols.
Yes, you certainly do. Speaking with Pedro Alonso, he's an independent curator who's just been out in Los Angeles, where you also saw the show Grounded, which takes a look at land not simply as terrain, but as representing so much more.
Yes, and it was a great show. It was actually curated by an old friend of mine, Rita Gonzalez. Rita and I interned together at MoMA. Now she's at LACMA. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see her, but I did get to see the show. And there is a stunning work by our friend Patrick Martinez in there.
We just talked about him because he had the neon signs all around Boston, or at least parts of Boston. We talked about this because not everybody wanted to put his signs up as part of the Boston Public Art Triennial.
Yes, he was dealing with homelessness. And his work, in this case, it was a large landscape painting, and his work really reflects on the changing landscape of L.A. So again, during the George Floyd riots, he was, or the riots responding to George Floyd's murder, he made a series of paintings where, it was like pieces of particle board that were broken up and plywood that were broken and neon and shattered glass, and reflecting on the damage, right? His recent body of work has, he's been using torches to char the paintings. So the landscape painting he has here at LACMA had neon, stucco, graffiti, bits of ceramic in it, and it really highlights the hybridization of cultures that is happening constantly in his hometown of Los Angeles. And his work is really about kind of highlighting these elements of hybridity and resilience, and devising different visual metaphors, including incorporating pre-Hispanic symbols from murals in Mexico. And
this is a group show, so he's one of many artists having very different interpretations of land and what it represents.
Yes. No. There were great artists. There's also Fernando Rodriguez Palma, a Mexican artist who had a Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is the plumed serpent that is famous in Mesoamerican. It's a Mesoamerican deity, worshipped by many different cultures across time, Aztecs, Mayan, that kind of thing. And he's famous for being the plumed serpent. And this was an animatronic type. It almost looked. It had elements of a Chinese New Year's dragon, right? But with animatronics, and it would move around. And it was near Rita did a great job. Another artist, Narciso Rodriguez, a lot of Latino artists in the show. His work reflects a lot on field workers and migrant workers, and takes the cardboard packaging for fruits, which are, California is one of the biggest suppliers of fruits and vegetables in the country, and makes portraits of people.
Oh, that's incredibly poignant.
Oh my God, yeah. And in this one, it was this really beautiful large piece that the museum owns. LACMA owns it, and it is spread. It's a mission, actually. So it's an architectural piece, kind of reflecting on the Spanish colonial heritage of California, the Mission Trail, and everything that's come from that. It's stunning piece.
And presumably he's sitting with the migrant workers rendering their portraits.
He he was a migrant worker. Yeah. So and his family. So he.
I want to skip ahead a little bit. Maybe we'll pick up some of these next time, because I do want to ask you, this is we're around the anniversary of the wildfires in California. Yeah. And curious, I think we talked about this. We certainly talked about people you knew, artists who lost work, who lost studios, who lost homes. A year later, what are artists doing to represent that time and make sure that people remember? Because we don't talk about it much anymore, but this is going to be basically a generation of rebuilding. Yes, that's a very good point. There were many artists who lost their homes and studios. Beatriz Cortez, who lost her home. As far as I know, most artists have new homes and studios, which is good. But our friend Doug Aiken has been doing this really wonderful project called Brising. So soon after the fires, Doug does not, he's very focused. He was capturing video footage of the fires, which he showed me. But then he went into the devastated area, particularly of the Palisades, and went through with a team of people and started to collect the remains, right? Burned and charred material, things that were going to be disposed of. He worked with a local church. They gave him a bunch of material as well. And the idea is that he's collecting this material, which he will then recycle, smelt down, depending on what the material is, to create a series of sculptures. And the long-term idea is to secure a piece of land and have a series of installations there for the public to visit. And being Doug, it's changed a bit from when I first spoke to him, but this last iteration, he had these really, really wonderful, like outlines of kind of the typical California home with a garden and water and the sculptures that make sound. So he's really creating a destination for people to come in, hike around, and reflect on what was lost, as well as the impact of climate change. Well, as you mentioned, he's just at the inception of that, the artist Doug Aiken, so either he or you or both will keep us posted on that.
Absolutely.
Pedro, great to see you as always.
Great to see you.
Culture Show contributor and independent curator Pedro Alonso joins us every month. Again, thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow or join us live at the Boston Public Library. We have more show for you then. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4, with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Pine Island Camp, committed to fostering independence and a strong sense of community. This rustic boy summer camp located in central Maine is simple, unplugged, and rooted in nature. Learn more at pineisland.org.
Rapper Wiz Khalifa and actor Sanaa Lathan learn about ancestors who left the American South in search of better lives in the North. Join Henry Louis Gates Jr. for a new episode of Finding Your Roots, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, international enrollment is up at Harvard despite the Trump administration's actions against the university. And as the Winter Olympics in Italy nears, several athletes from the Boston Fleet are preparing to compete on the world stage. We'll hear more about that on The Extra Point. That and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at